Born in Sheffield, but every bit SM1's favourite adopted son. A man mountain of physical stature, yet agile as a tiger between the sticks. Over 12 years of playing service to Swindon Town Football Club. Invariably the number one for no fewer than 5 taskmaster managers that had all previously worked with the very best goalkeepers in the game. 505 appearances for Swindon Town Football Club, 4 promotions, 3 Evening Advertiser Player of the Year awards, as voted for by you lot, the fans. 5 England under-21 caps, as well as a host of junior England and junior level caps. All 5 caps, all being achieved during his time at Wiltshire. 2 spells at Manchester United. The second, perhaps most interestingly, signing for Alex Ferguson as cover for the injured Peter Schmeichel in 1993. Alas, all good things had to come to an end in red and white, or green in Fraser's case. And Fraser eventually departed the club with an all too rare testimonial and the fans' sincerest best wishes, joining former England manager Terry Venables' second coming at Crystal Palace. There was still time for an emotional coaching cameo under Kevin McDonald, where he regularly stung the gloves of another former town favourite, Wes Foderingham. Folks say legend is an overused term in football, but in the case of tonight's special guest, there is literally no other word that could be used to describe the man. So, esteemed guests, I give you your favourite number one's favourite number one, Fraser Charles Digby. Fraser, good evening.
Yeah, less of the Charles, mate. Thank you very much for that, sir. That was very kind of you.
Never you worry about that. You've always been a Fraser, never been a Charlie for us, Fraser. So don't you worry about that.
Thank God for that.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant to finally get you on the show, Fraser. And you were one of the very, very, very first people that I approached when we launched the show back in November. And for a number of reasons, we've been a little bit like ships passing in the night. But it's absolutely amazing to have you on. What I'll do, Fraser, to start you off, before we introduce the format of the show, I'm going to introduce you to tonight's panel. A mixture of people that some you know, some you don't, some will be reacquainted with. But all of whom at some point have asked you for an autograph. And we will start off by no other than making her show debut as co-host tonight, the lovely Rachel. Rachel, meet the lovely Fraser.
Hello, Rachel.
Oh, Rachel, unmute your mic. She's completely stunned into silence.
I'm so sorry. I was on mute. That's a great start. You're one of my heroes, honestly. I used to ask your autograph every week in the car park when I was 11, and you were very gracious and didn't tell me to go away once. So thank you.
That's all right. Less than 11. I feel old now.
Are you sorry?
actually, saying that, I've just got to tell you this. So where I'm working now, one of the lads that's working there with me, he brought a programme in the other day when he was mascot, age 5. I went, thank you so much for that.
How old do you need to feel, Fraser? I'm sure you thanked him for that. Fraser, is that another person, as I say, you've not just signed autographs for, but bought immeasurable amounts of playing pleasure, is the wonderful Chris. Chris, good evening. Fraser, Chris Fraser.
Evening,
Chris.
Hello, Fraser.
How are you doing? You all right?
No, not too bad, not too bad. Probably seen the vast majority of your games for Swindon.
It's been a few.
It certainly has. Well, Chris, like me, he's an elder statesman on the show, Fraser. So, we're very much brothers of the same mind in that sentiment. From a couple of the elder statesmen, I'll take you to one of the younger statesmen on the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge Council. Joe, say hello to Fraser.
Hello, Fraser.
Hello, Joe. You all right?
Hello, mate. Wasn't fortunate enough to watch you in the flesh, I'm afraid, but I've heard many stories. I've heard the legends.
Well, we've
Fraser, you'll be delighted. We've got a. Go on, mate. Don't let me interrupt you.
No, carry on, mate. Go on.
Well, we've got another member of the Goalkeepers Union here, Fraser. Martin's joining us, a fine goalkeeping coach. No doubt you'll be giving him plenty of tips later.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Martin. You all right?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Good, not too bad. Not too bad.
Now, there's got to be a gag here about 3 cats somewhere, surely. Got to be, Martin. I'm relying on you with some goalkeeping banter.
I have nothing. I am sorry to let you down. I'd just embarrass myself if I tried.
Oh, well, okay. And last but not least, Fraser, a very old friend of yours, a good friend of the show, and our lead partner in crime, Kevin Metcalf, no less. Kevin, say hello.
Good evening, my friend.
Oh, good evening.
I love the stunned silence.
I just love the fact that somebody is sat with Fraser right now showing how to do this. Come on, Fraser, you need to tell me who is Emma mate? Sat with you, Tudor?
No, she isn't actually, mate. She's downstairs. So, I managed to do it all on my own for a change, to be fair.
I'm very, very surprised.
Yeah, I was as well, mate, to be fair.
It's good to talk to you, my friend.
Yeah, you too.
Well, look, Fraser, as we said when we set this show up, this is all going to be about the best of the best. So we regard you as the club's best ever, greatest ever custodian. Yes, there are some people, certainly of an elder generation, that may debate that. But I think, given that amazing role of honour that I've introduced the show with, there's very little debate that you are certainly our highest decorated custodian. And so, as a consequence of that, tonight we're going to be going through your best of the best. But before we do that, we've got a whole host of listener questions and tributes, Fraser, just to soften you up a little bit. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, smashing. Well, Kevin, if you're listening, you've actually got the show opener.
Yeah, it is quite a good one, actually. This will put you a bit on the spot as well, which I've never done to you before, so it's quite good. Phrase, in 60 seconds, summarise your entire career.
In 60 seconds? So started off at Man United, 3.5 years there. No, actually, I came to Man United and I played in the youth team a year above myself with the likes of Norman Whiteside and Mark Hughes because the goalkeeper had left to go to Leeds. So I played for Man United youth team 3 years on the spin. I signed a 2-year pro. Second year pro, I came to Swindon under Lou Macari. We obviously got promoted the first year. I won my first England under-21 cap. Then we had another couple of years. Then Aussie came in, got promoted, and then obviously relegated. Then Aussie left and went to Newcastle. We got Glenn in. Got promoted with, fell out with Glenn. Ended up at Man United on loan. Then got called back by Glenn. Spent the rest of the season. Then beat Leicester in the playoffs. Then I finished off. Glenn left. John Gorman carried on. We had the Premiership. Dislocated my shoulder in the Premiership. Missed third of the season. And then John Gorman left. Sadly, Steve McMahon came in. We'll browse over that one. I left and went to Crystal Palace. Worked there for 2.5 years under Terry Venables and Stevie Coppell. Then left and briefly went to Barry Town. Won the Welsh FA Cup and the Welsh League, and runner-up in the Welsh League Cup. Then I found myself reuniting with Lou at Huddersfield for a couple of months, and finally ended up with Ian Holloway at QPR. Then retired.
Well, that was pretty impressive 60 seconds there, sir.
Very much so. And we're more than happy to give you a few seconds overdraft on that as well, Fraser.
Yeah, thanks, man. I need an overdraft these days, mate.
You've earned your stripes. You've earned your stripes. So, Chris, do you want to lead us into some of the listener questions?
All right. Yes. All right then, Fraser. This one comes from Simon Maslin via Twitter. And he asks, there aren't many lower league players who go out on loan to England's top league, and especially to Manchester United in their prime. How did it come about? How was it? And do you think you benefited your game or hamper it as you were there and missed out on first team football?
Do you know what? That's a good question. For me, it was a real high and low moment because we didn't start the season that great. Well, we started okay under Glenn. But then we went through a bit of an iffy spell, and I think we may have lost at home to the enemy. And then he dropped me, and that was the first time I've been dropped in my career. So I was really, really down at the time. And then I think it was only about a week later, John Gorman calls me into the office. I thought, oh, here we go. And Glenn said, I've got someone on the phone for you. And he said, it's Alex Ferguson. I went, don't take the piss, will you? Do you know what I mean? I thought, you've dropped me as it is. I can't get any worse than that. And it was Alex Ferguson. And he said, Fraser, he said, I've only got Peter Schmeichel fit. All my other goalkeepers are injured. Will you come on loan? He said, I've agreed with Glenn. Glenn's happy to let you go. Because the thing was, at the time, there wasn't any goalkeepers on the bench. So it was a case of whoever was playing, the other one was playing in the reserves. So Glenn had already agreed that I could go, went to Old Trafford. And I've got to be honest, it was the best 2 months of my footballing life, working with the likes of Brian Robson, Mark Hughes, Ryan Giggs, Lee Sharp, and the likes of obviously Peter Schmeichel. And you know what? It was a bit of a tough beginning there. We played first team against reserves on the first day. The first team beat us 6-2, and Mark Hughes turned around after the game and went, "Welcome back to the club, Fraser." I went, "Thank you very much." But it was one of those that you had to raise your game to work with people like that. The five-a-sides were. I thought we had a good standard in Swindon. We were playing in the Championship, but the quality of the United players was incredible. And then, I was lucky enough that Eric Cantona came when I was there as well. And every day after training, he said, "Fraser, you stay behind," and we did crossing and shooting. And I've got to be honest, when I came back to Swindon, Glenn called me back. I think we were playing New Year's Day, and we beat Coventry 5-1. And then Alex called me into the office, said, "Fraser, Glenn's called me, and he's calling you back." He said. So I went, I'd have liked to stay for a little bit longer because I was really enjoying working with these guys. But then when I came back to Swindon, I felt like a brand new person. The confidence was sky high. My whole demeanour was just on a different level. So for me, it was I couldn't have asked for a better 2 months, to be honest, away from Swindon, and to come back and then get to Wembley and beat Leicester was the pinnacle of that season, really.
Fraser, so we have Mickey Hazard on the show a couple of weeks ago, and Mickey said that it's nothing he's never said to you in person, so you probably know what's about to come.
Yeah.
But Mickey's attitude towards you was that you should have been England's number one for a number of years, and all that held you back. And you mentioned the words yourself. I think it was sort of self-confidence and belief. Did you feel like did Mickey's words ring true, bearing in mind what your Man United experience was when you were there?
Yeah, I mean, I think a problem was when you've probably seen it with the goalkeepers at Man United. When United have done well, they've had the top keepers. Your Peter Schmeichel, your Van der Hau, your De Gea when he's been on his top form, and you kind of. Those keepers have done well at United, and you've got to have that level. We've had some good keepers that haven't really made it, but they've made it elsewhere. Foster at Watford been a great keeper, but he never made it at United. And to make it there, you have to be special. And I think I probably didn't have. I had a certain belief, and I had a certain strength of character where I probably didn't have enough to take me to that next level. I mean, Mickey, I love Mickey to bits, and what he says is I get embarrassed by it because he means it, and he said it to me on numerous occasions. He's put me in the same bracket as Ray Clemens and Pat Jennings.
Well, he's not the only one, Fraser. There's about 30,000 Wiltshire folk that would do something similar.
I know, but I'm that sort of, you know me, Mark. You've known me for long enough now. I've loved every minute of being at Swindon, and I wouldn't want to change it for anything. But yeah, I don't quite see myself like that. Maybe in a few years' time when I look back on some of the stuff I've got and think, well, yeah, maybe I was, but it is great to hear people say that, and I'm humbled by it. But you know, I probably don't see it myself really.
Oh, well, you can take it from us. You absolutely were. So let's fast forward that extra couple of. You don't need to sit and wait for it to dawn on you. And I'll stop you blushing. Joe, I believe you've got a question, Joe.
I have. I was absolutely in awe listening to that last question, by the way. That was fantastic viewing. I've got a bit of a lighter question up next from London Crooner on Twitter. What hair products did you use in the 90s to have such a perfectly coiffed barnet?
I saw this on Twitter. I did have a chuckle. Do you know what?
It's definitely Grecian 2000 now, though, isn't it, mate?
Oh,
do you know what? Somebody said to me the other week about that. I would never ever touch anything. To be fair, the grey is starting to come through now, mate. To be fair, but I wouldn't touch any of that. If I go grey, I go grey. To be fair, the life I've had. Being married, I should be grey, shouldn't I, really? But that is another story for another day.
You've made me go grey a few times, mate.
So, Fraser, were you heavy on the hairspray then, or was it a gel thing? Or
no, it was gel, mate. It was gel. Do you know what? I can't remember the name of the product, but it was gel. Yeah. But the worst thing about that was when it rained or you sweated, that product went in your eyes. It was awful.
Oh yeah, straight in your eyes.
It was awful. So you had to get the Vaseline on your eyebrows to stop the gel going in your eyes.
Not ideal for slippy gloves, was it? Really, not ideal.
Not really, mate. You didn't want that on your gloves anyway. The old Vaseline, that didn't do any good, did it?
Aye, indeed. Right then, so we've got that down, Joe. You happy with that explanation? No hairspray, pure gel, plenty of it, slick back, Vaseline on the eyebrows to keep your minces clean.
That's better than I was hoping for. That's a fantastic answer.
Outstanding. Martin, move us along. I believe we've got another question from Darren.
Yeah, from Darren, done by WhatsApp. He says, there are quite a few players from that era that aren't local to Swindon, but decided to hang around here after playing. What's the attraction? He says, we get slated for being such a shit place to live. Why did the likes of you, King, the late Al Mack, etc. hang around?
I got, to be honest with you, I got a little bit of the hump with players that used to come down and slag Swindon off. You know, I'm not being fair. I don't necessarily go shopping in the town centre, but I think Swindon, you know, doesn't get a fair crack of the whip. To be honest, you know, it's always been a good place to live. I've lived on the outskirts for the last 30 years. I obviously moved out Marlborough way, and then I'm further over Devizes now. But it was always somewhere that I enjoyed living there. You know, I brought my family up there. You know, my boys are now living in London. But I think Swindon's a great place to live. You know, you've got some countryside just outside. You can go to London in an hour and a half. You go to Reading, Bristol, Bath. You know, it is a real good place. And there's, you know, you see with the crowds that we're having now, you know, people are coming into Swindon, and, you know, what Clem's trying to do with, you know, with the kids, you know, we want them all Swindon fans, you know, and getting the average crowd we're getting now, I think, you know, it's showing that Swindon is a good place to be.
Here. Spoke as a true adopted son of Wiltshire, Fraser.
Well, I've been here a long time, mate, haven't I?
we're all standing up saluting as you speak. Rachel, you're up next. You've got another listener question.
Yes, this is from Martin via WhatsApp. So what was in the wash bag, and did you ever get your tortoiseshell comb back?
The only time I got my tortoiseshell comb back is when my niece decided to buy me one for Christmas. That's the time I got one back. But so the wash bag, it was just the usual thing. So it was the hair gel, obviously. What else was in there? Shampoo, deodorant, aftershave. That was about it, really. I can't think of too much else.
Yeah, I think the wash bags tend to get overplayed these days, don't they? You know, there's a lot of messing about, a lot of pouncing around with your wash bags, Fraser. But it can't be any more than a bottle of Radox, surely. any more than that, and it's just unnecessary. I mean, gone are the days where you left the ground swinging your Lotto boot bag. There's none of that going on anymore.
No, it's all changed now, mate, hasn't it? So I have actually still got that wash bag. We might have to do something and raffle it off for charity at some point.
Now,
So,
right,
Yeah.
I'm going to be straight onto you, mate, after this show because that is fabled.
I
Yeah,
think
you get
we'll
a
have to get-
squiggle on that. We're going to make some people very happy.
well, we'll see if we can get Danny Baker involved as well, because he obviously started it off with the wash bag. So we'll get him involved if we can, and the wash bag's at the back of my wardrobe. So we'll have to see what we can do with that.
All right, sounds like a plan.
So
Here's another question for you, Fraser. This is from Nick via WhatsApp. So Nick says, of all your teammates that went on to coach or manage, were you surprised by any players who either did or didn't take that step? So, for example, Colin Calderwood tends to be regarded as being a bit average in that respect. Bodin and Chalky went to academy level. Lingy had success, but also had his struggles away from football.
Yeah,
Nicky Hammond went on to become a hugely successful director of football. And obviously, most recently, Nesta Lorenzo's been appointed manager of Colombia. So where's your thoughts at, Fraser, in relation to your old teammates?
I think out of the ones that went, I mean, Colin was one that you'd say, yes, he would go. It's a difficult one, really, because there wasn't really that many. I mean, Nick Hammond went. I mean, Nick's done a great job. You know, he's gone on to, like be director of football. He was up at Celtic for a while. He was helping at Newcastle, and he's really got himself a fantastic career there. Although he did say he had to do something after being understudy for me for 8 years. So he has done rather well. I think Colin hasn't done as well as I would have expected. I'd have liked to see Paul Zippy Bodin go on and do more, because I think he's got a great football brain. I think he's doing a great job at Wales now. Lingy, unfortunately, like you say, had his struggles, but he was another one that was quite, forward thinking. Apart from that, there's not many who I would say would go on to be, obviously Macca went into coaching. Never stepped up to be a manager. So apart from that, there isn't too many others. I couldn't see Brian to manage too.
Talk to us about Sean Taylor, Fraser. I mean, because Taylor was always seen as somebody that would literally, he would die for the badge.
Yeah,
and obviously that doesn't necessarily translate over to a quality coach. Obviously, he did all right with Lingy, but is he somebody that you thought could have gone on to bigger and better things?
I don't think Sean was probably great lad. He would run through walls, Although I think I did break his arm at Middlesbrough once because he wasn't listening, because he got his gum shield in. He said, "I couldn't hear your phrase." I said, "It's a bloody gum shield, not headphones." So, but Sean was always, clever lad, quite studious. But I think you've got to be a special kind of person to be a manager, and I don't think we had too many nice guys that sort of era. Probably weren't strong enough to become managers.
Could you ever have foreseen Nesta Lorenzo taking over as Colombia boss, or you was as shocked as the rest of us?
There's probably something else he's doing in Colombia, but I don't know whether he's being a manager or not.
Allegedly.
That might be a little bit unfair on Nesta.
Poor Nesta.
Nesta was, the fact is of what he's done, because he was an agent. Because when I went to QPR, he was looking after one of the lads at QPR. So I knew he was an agent, but I didn't realise he'd gone into coaching and management. So I don't know. I mean, Ozzy, he always got on well with Ozzy. I mean, they played in the same team together, and Ozzy brought him over. So, he's a similar sort of character to Ozzy. Ozzy was a good manager with us. Didn't really go on to great things after us, but I thought he was a great manager for us.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding, and essentially took a very, very talented group of footballers and died in the wall winners, and just got them playing an irresistible brand of football and kept them winning. You just can't fault it. I think there are some clubs. I think with Newcastle, he was probably right guy, wrong time. And obviously a similar situation with Tottenham. I mean, when he got there, that was also a bit of a thankless task for him, because he did a brilliant job at West Brom, didn't he?
No, he did. To be fair, he did do well there. So, yeah, no, he was a good bloke, Ozzy. So yeah,
fair dues. I believe we've got. I think Kevin's going to jump on with another one.
Phrase, another question from a listener is, did you ever go on Brian Kilcline's barge?
No. As it happens, the best story about Killer is we had a Christmas do. So we'd gone out at 2:00 in the afternoon, all the boys, and some of the wives were eating in one of the restaurants in Old Town. And it got to about 9:00, and I was supposed to be going with Killer, and my wife and his wife were going to come and pick us up. And I couldn't find him anywhere. I said, "Where's Killer?" So I said to the bouncer, "Where's Kathy?" We're in Route 66, I think, at the time. And he said, "Oh, I think he's gone." I went, "What the hell he's gone?" So I phoned his wife up and mine and said, "Have you heard from Killer?" He went, "No, we'll come down and find you." So we drove round, and there was this huge bloke sat on the steps of the train station with his black leather coat on, head in his hands, absolutely out of it. And so his wife was a real tiny little thing. She's basically battered him into the car, and then they've dropped us off, and then she's driven him back. And then we get a phone call about 2 a.m, and she went, "You never guess what I've done. I left him in the car." It was about -2. And then she said, "I went onto the barge," and she said, "The next thing I heard was bang, 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 thud." And she went, "He's only tried to walk down the gangplank and go, and he's tripped over." Now, he could have gone any way. He'd have ended up in the canal, and that could have been the last we've seen of Killer. But he did. Fortunately, he tripped up, smashed himself onto the barge. and she said, all I did was, she said, "I tried not to laugh too much. I just got a bucket of cold water and told him to wash himself off."
Oh,
So
goodness.
on the barge, that's the most funniest thing I've heard.
And fair play to you, Fraser. You've managed to drink Killer under the bar as well. That is no small gesture, is it not?
Well, I did think that, but I think there's a few other stories that might come out at some point.
Right, okay, we'll keep the powder dry. Well, Chris has got another one for us.
Who wore short shorts better, Hoddle or Maskell?
Off. I think Maskey. I think he put. Although I think if you're talking to short shorts, Steve White was probably managed to get the shorts shorter than anybody.
I think they were spectacularly short shorts.
Oh, they were. I also remember my time as a ball boy when I was growing up in Sheffield United. I don't know whether the older ones might know him, John McPhail.
Oh, now, yeah, I know. Yeah.
John McPhail actually wore his shorts up by his armpits. They were that high. It's unbelievable. He was the worst. I think Maskey had a Glennon thing, but I think Steve White was probably he takes the biscuit on that one.
See, you were a special, when it comes to shorts, Phrase, you were a special era goalkeeper, weren't you? None of this messing about with green shorts, black shorts. You were literally, I'm wearing the first team's kit shorts. That's proper goalkeeping banter, that is.
Well, I'd like to say that was my choice, but unfortunately, mate, we couldn't afford any other shorts, so I just had to wear what we had, mate. It was a bit of a...
always the case with goalkeepers. We always get everyone else's hand-me-downs. Don't worry about that. Joe, you've got a question, I believe.
I do. So, I've got a question from one of our listeners. Talk us through some of the Premier League signings. So, were there any signings that we made in that summer going into the Premier League that you thought might not be as good, then turned out to be amazing, or vice versa?
And there were some very interesting signings during the season as well, weren't there, Fraser?
Well, there was. I'm trying to think. So, who did we get before the season? Remind me, because I've got to be honest, my memory's awful these days.
Adrian Whitbread came in very early that season, didn't he?
So AD was a good lad, but not a Premiership. Not a Premiership. He worked hard and he was a good lad, but no, I think the ones I remember is obviously Killer and oh God, he took me to Crystal Palace with Terry Venables.
Was Nyholt?
With who? Sorry.
Was Nyholt Premier League signing?
I tell you what, Luke was a good player. Luke was a good player because you needed somebody that would put the foot in, get stuck in, play the ball easy, and when you've got the likes of like Mickey Hazard and Monkey and everything, you know, he'd get the ball and play to those decent players. You know, although we had Ross was played for a short while, didn't he, and then dropped back. he tried to drop back into the sweeper position, and then we didn't see him then. I think we had Frank McAvenny, didn't we? He came.
Andy Much was in there as well.
Muchy did all right. Muchy was always going to do all right for you. He was a decent goal scorer. I think the problem is we didn't have players of Premiership quality. We kind of needed a couple of players. We had players like the lads we've mentioned that had been in the Premiership, but were struggling to keep pace with the game as it was.
I think the big one that came in there as well was obviously Jan.
Was what? Sorry.
Was obviously Jan Argafiotov came in for that season, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, he did. And I mean, the thing is, if Jan had started scoring a little bit earlier, I think we'd have been a different kettle of fish. I mean, Jan scored some great goals. Once he got going, we done well. We just conceding too many goals at the end of the day, weren't we? Do you know what I mean? We played some fantastic football at times, but we were naive, really. And I think, John Gorman is one of the nicest men in football, but it'd have been better if Glenn had stayed.
Yeah, Fraser, there were a clutch of players that came in that you were sort of looking and going, all right, they're doing a job. I mean, you talked about Killer, but there were also lads like Terry Fennick. You mentioned McAvenny.
Terry.
Did some of those boys ultimately know that, did they feel that their legs had gone, or that they were on, the club, it was a hiding to nothing. It was one final hole. I mean, Laurie Sanchez was another example. I mean, these are guys that, they weren't really sort of going to make a living at the top level at any other club. Was there any sort of chat inside the club from them that, they knew that this was a little bit of a fool's errand?
I mean, it never really. I mean, I can't remember too much, but I mean, there never was any sort of animosity. There was never any. John had a great atmosphere about the place. As I say, he was a lovely fella, and he did get everyone together. Even though we were getting beat by some big scores, we played to the bitter end, and no one blamed anyone else. We just wanted to work for each other. It was the first time the club had ever been in the top division, and we give it our all, but it wasn't going to be. We didn't have that. We didn't have the quality in areas that we needed it.
Yeah, gotcha. So it was just a question, like you say, it was ultimately the club trying to sort of cut its cloth accordingly. But just didn't quite have the ingredients to really give us a chance. And I guess, how'd you go about replacing a player like Glenn Hoddle? But obviously, not only that, but how'd you go about replacing such a long-standing captain in Colin Calderwood as well? I mean, those are big asks, aren't they? Big price tag replacements.
Well, they are, and then we lost Mitch as well up front. So it was down the spine of the team. We lost some big characters, and that didn't half make a dent in the club. But we did. At the end of it, we still produced some great football. And that's what it was about. It was great to be involved in. We were never going to set the world alight, but we get a good account of ourselves. Just like I say, we conceded too many goals, really.
Scored lots of goals, generated lots of points, Fraser. I think history has been very, very kind to us in that respect. Once you get over the sort of the 100 goals against caricature and you look at some of those other columns, it wasn't exactly, it wasn't as embarrassing as I think a lot of people thought it was at the time.
No, I think you're right. It felt it at the time being involved in it. And, we still get the little digs every now and again. But I think, there's been some clubs that didn't even perform like we did. So, yeah, I think you keep your head up high and you say, we've been there, So, if we never get there again, we've been there.
Hey, Fraser, wasn't only one of them goals in the Premier League your fault?
Yeah, no. Remember Mike Spearman? Apparently I said to Mike Spearman that it was less than 5. and don't forget, Kingy keeps repeating that every time I ever come into the ground. right? I said that tongue in cheek to Mike Spearman all them years ago, right? And I tried not to laugh at the time, and he thought I was serious. And he told everyone. Fraser said it was only less than 5 was his fault. I'm still on that now.
Well, Fraser, you've just mentioned the man's name. Martin's got a question in relation to an ex-colleague of yours.
Yeah, have you ever met a player who looked less likely to be a footballer than Dave Mitchell?
Do you know what, Mitch? Mitch was a great lad. He was. You know, I mean, how many years was he? He was at Chelsea for a few years, wasn't he, before he came to us? But
he was at Chelsea. He was at Feyenoord. He had a good old career before he came to Swindon.
No, he did, and he did. I mean, he had a great game when we beat Birmingham 6-4, didn't he? At St Andrews when we come back from 4-2 down to win 6-4. He had a great game that day. Yeah, Mitch was probably not your typical centre forward, but he was a little bit like Chalky. He was a little bit wiry, you know, and used to get in people's faces and twist them around, you know. Chalky was very similar to Dave, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he didn't have like necessarily the greatest first touch in the world. At least that's what it seemed like from the sidelines. But yeah, pace and power pace to burn, and he had loads of power as well, didn't he, Fraser? Big, strong guy.
Yeah, no, he was. He wasn't. He used to finish well, but he wasn't one like Duncan Shearer that you knew that he'd hit the ball. You know, in training, Mitch used to be a bit more clever, a little bit more subtle. Rather than have sheer pace and power in his shooting, he was a little bit more thinking about where things are going.
Didn't he play centre back one game as well? I seem to remember.
Do you know what? I can't remember. I
think someone might have been injured, and I think he was in emergency.
Yeah, it might have
QPR.
been.
I think it was against QPR.
Was it? Yeah. I can't remember, to be honest. Unless it was.
Hey, that's starting to ring a bell, actually.
Unless that was the game I got sent off at QPR and Alan McDonald went. I know, because he'd gone by then, hadn't he? That was afterwards, wasn't
it? Yeah.
He'd left the club by then.
All right. Well, look, here's another question for you, Fraser. So you've tried pretty much everything career-wise since football. How hard is it to keep working after the football stops? And what have you enjoyed the most, and indeed the least?
I think it's always difficult when you've been involved in football, and you get that buzz of going out on a Saturday afternoon, as it used to be. It's not very often these days, is it? And you know, midweek games. It's finding a career that gives you that buzz. And I've got to be honest, I've struggled to find the one career which I've really enjoyed. There was one that Ken Chapman, who was the old chairman who brought Glenn Hoddle to the club, we had a company called Sports Solutions, which helps clubs to redevelop, relocate. And we the Wharton Bassett football, cricket, tennis facility. We did Tame Football Club as well. Sadly, it was the time of the financial crash, and that didn't really carry on much longer after that. But that was the one that I really enjoyed, because it was going around speaking with football people, going into clubs, you know, helping them with their facilities and, you know, potential relocations. That I really enjoyed. I got involved in a few startup projects, which were interesting. Cost me an arm and a leg, but was interesting. And then the hospitality was probably the last thing before my new job. Always enjoyed food, always enjoyed wine. Always swore I'd never go into a pub because it wasn't really my thing. But I had the Silks on the Downs and really enjoyed it. Hard work, probably one of the hardest careers I've been involved in. So any of these big-time apprentices, footballers that want to go around saying they've made it, ought to go and work a bit of hospitality, might bring them down a peg or two. But that was probably, I did enjoy that. But I've got to be honest, what I'm doing now, I'm really enjoying. I've got in, and I've got to be honest. I mean, you know, it's hard work, but no, it's a great buzz. We've got a great little team down there, and I enjoy driving nice cars.
Is that am I right in saying? And again, Fraser, if I'm not allowed to say, then just tell me to park it. Excuse the pun. But you're with Audi down in Bristol, are you not?
No, in Swindon.
In Swindon.
Yes, mate. So I'm at Swindon Audi.
Outstanding. Because I've got to be honest, I don't know whether I got the wrong end of the stick, but there's no way we should be losing it at Bristol.
Yeah, no, mate. I won't go down there, pal. There's a little barrier just outside. Won't go anywhere near it. But no, I've been there I've been in Audi Swindon for the last few months, so it's really enjoyed it.
Oh, outstanding. So anyone wants an Audi, anyone listening in, get yourself down to Swindon Audi. Make sure you make an appointment to see Fraser. I'm sure he'll look after you. Kevin, I believe you've got another question for us.
I do, and it's a bit of a weird question from me to you because I sort of know half the answer, and I don't know who sent this one in, but how did you find working at Swindon Town in the Swindon Town office? It must have been weird.
You know what? So I went in with who brought me in. So when I retired, Mark Devlin was the chief exec, and I went round when I finished playing. I went round and spoke to a few people in different businesses, and Mark was one I spoke to, and he said, "Look, come in," and I worked for a couple of days a week. Under Mike Sullivan, who was the sales and marketing manager at the time. And I've got to be honest, I enjoyed it. I probably should have stayed a bit longer, to be honest. Judy was knocking about then. Obviously, Chris Tanner was there doing the programme and everything. And there was a real good group of people. I wish if Mark Devlin stayed a bit longer, to be honest with you, because I thought he was a real top bloke. He had the club at heart. He said, Fraser, I want you to go out and speak to a lot of the companies that the club pissed off when, we went in the Premiership, because instead of looking after the local clubs, they went for the big money. And you knew full well it would all end in tears, and it did, Instead of looking after people that have looked after the club for years, that's what it's about. But, sadly, they didn't. They went for the big bucks from the big companies, and it ended up backfiring on them.
So obviously you've moved on, Fraser. Do you ever harbour any ambitions at any point of getting back involved with Swindon Town?
I mean, I've met with Clem, and I think he's a fantastic bloke. And Rob, I've known Rob for years, and I think that was a great choice bringing Rob in as chief exec, because he's Swindon through and through, and what Clem's done with the getting to making himself one of us, really. He's a massive fan of football, and he makes people feel special. And what he's trying to achieve at this football club is hopefully we're going to go, hopefully back up the leagues. That's what it's all about. And I've said to Rob and Clem, if I can help in whatever way I can, I would certainly help. Because I've spent most of my life down here now, and the club's been good to me, and I've enjoyed being around. So if I can help, then I will do.
Just on that, Hammers, just on that with Fraser, I've said for many, many years that the club's missed a trick with not using Fraser as an ambassador role. He could play a huge part in where the club misses out on sometimes and putting over how the club is and everything else. He should be one of the faces of Swindon Town. And on the second bit of that, I saw Rob Angus yesterday. He's coming in to buy a car off you, Fraser.
I know. I spoke to him the other week, actually, mate. So it'd be good to see him. And I'd love to be able to look after the lads and everything if we can, whichever way. But yeah, no, I'd still, if I get the time to help the club, I'd certainly do that. So I think Clem's got some great ideas, and there are some things in the future that will happen, hopefully.
Well, let's hope so. I think we'll start with a nice Fraser Digby statue somewhere. How about that for starters? we all need a good meeting place somewhere, Fraser, and
Yeah,
I'm sure you could be the man. You could be the man pointing the way for us, and we're meeting your shadow. We've got we've got a nice tribute here.
Sorry, mate.
That Chris is going to read. No, not at all, Fraser. You carry on, bud.
Mate, can I just say about the statue? Happy to have a statue, so long as it looks like I did when I was 25, not like I look like now. Is that all right?
That'll be absolutely fine. Don't you worry about that. As long as it doesn't look like that dodgy Ronaldo one, mate. We've got to get the face right. Have you looking like one of the Marx brothers? But look, we're Fraser. Chris has got a lovely tribute that someone sent in for you.
This is some one that's come into us from Twitter from Martin Nolan. It says, "One of our own, a class act and a super club man."
Short, sweet, and succinct.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
And Joe, you've got a question from Vicky, I believe.
I do. Vicky Robinson on Twitter. You've touched on it a little bit before, Fraser, but she asks, why did you go into the restaurant business and not coaching?
I made a decision when I finished playing. When I was playing at Swindon, I had a goalkeeper coach called Martin Thomas. Now, anyone that knows Martin, I think played at Newcastle, Derby, really lovely fella. And I spoke to him when I finished because he was involved with the FA. I think he was one of the top goalkeeping people at the FA at the time. And he said I needed to do my UEFA C licence, then my UEFA B licence, then I could do my goalkeeping licence. And I went, no disrespect, Martin, but all I want to do is pass on what I've learned as a goalkeeper and to the kids and to the young lads. I said, I'm not really that interested in coaching outfield players. I don't really want to do that. I want to coach the keepers because at the end of the day, we are almost a team within a team. And there's a lot of different things come with being a goalkeeper. And I said, if I can pass on what I've learned over 20 years, then I would do that. And he said, well, no, you need to do this stuff. So I said, well, I'm not going to bother. And I did the coaching at Swindon because I thought I was only going to help out for a couple of months when Paolo went, and then under Kevin McDonald came in and just made me part of his team, and I did enjoy it. But because I hadn't got my coaching badges and it wasn't something that I really wanted to do, I worked with Wes, and Wes was an interesting character. Good goalkeeper. A lot of things were good. Didn't want to listen to anybody, mind. He was very single-minded. Whereas I don't know whether Reese is listening here. I worked with Reese briefly when Andy King was manager, and Reese was brilliant. We used to talk about all sorts. He used to listen and he used to ask questions, and that's the way I wanted it. It's a two-way conversation. Do you know what I mean? And if I could help Reese, hopefully I helped him with a lot of things that he wanted to do. And if he'd say made a mistake or something like that, he said, Fraser, what did I do wrong here? And we talk about it. With Wes, it was never like that. Wes didn't want to know. He just thought he knew best, and that was it. So we had an interesting relationship, but he did well for the club. Do you know what I mean? And he's kind of, I wish him all the best. But it was one that I went, well, do I really want to be here? And I had the opportunity to go into the restaurant business, and anyone sees me now, I like my food, so I decided to do that instead. It was never something that I wanted to do in the football world, really.
That's probably why you don't see many managers coaching these days, do you? First team managers as goalkeepers.
No, you don't, to be honest. There was one or two, wasn't there? And they didn't do very well. I think Mike Walker, wasn't there? His dad, the old Spurs keeper's dad. He was manager for a while, wasn't he? And there's been a few.
I think you've got Nuno Espirito Santo is the one that comes to mind at the minute.
Yeah,
I couldn't name another current manager that was a goalkeeper.
Yeah, he done fantastic at Wolves, didn't he? And you kind of think, well, I think you've got to be a certain, as I say, you've got to be a certain mindset. And as I say, I didn't have that desire to go into coaching. I did a few of my own goalkeeper schools with the young kids really enjoyed it. But when the Sports Solutions thing happened, I had to stop doing that because I just didn't have the time to do it.
More than fair. More than fair.
Fraser, I believe we've got another nice little tribute here that Martin's going to read out for you.
Yeah, this is from someone who's anonymous, but I think it's a feeling that a lot of people who met you, especially during the playing days, share. It says, Fraser Digby, my all-time favourite. I spoke to Fraser from time to time. I'd always act cool inside. I'd always act cool, but inside, I'm like, it's Fraser, it's Fraser, it's Fraser, and people just fall to pieces.
That's very kind. No, a lot of people say that, to be honest, but you know, I'm always me. I treat everybody how I want to be treated myself, and that's how I've always been in my life. Whether it's you're the MD of a multinational company or the guy that I always remember used to sweep the hospital, and he used to be outside getting my autograph every week. You know, and I treat everyone the same, and it's nice when people say that. But yeah, hopefully everyone that has spoken to me, you know, just treats me as you know, as one of the lads, really.
Well, that's you're such a humble geezer, honestly, Fraser. I think there's so many people that will listen to this tonight that maybe haven't heard you speak in the flesh before. Will be stunned, just like, you know, the everyman quality that you bring to the table. I mean, listen, that opening section, Fraser, was literally just stuff that's been contributed over the last couple of days. People just sort of literally sending in messages, questions, etc., direct to us, because they just want to reach out and have some kind of interaction with you. Even all these years after your career's finished, mate, it speaks volumes. And as Kevin was saying, you know, hopefully the football club will be listening as well, because I think if you ask most Swindon Town supporters, players of yesteryear that they'd like to see in and around the club, because you mean so much to us, your name's right up the top of the list, buddy. And I'm not just saying that to be polite. And I'm sure I would, if I asked people to unmute their mics tonight and start speaking, you'd hear that seconded by all of them, buddy. But look, Fraser, second part of this show is going to be all about, we talked about when I invited you on, I said to you, we want to talk about Fraser Digby's bests of the best. So what we're going to do is a little bit quick fire this. But my counsel and I are going to hammer through some categories and get your grey matter whirring. And I'm going to get the ball rolling by asking your Swindon Town career, Fraser. What was your best personal performance?
My best personal performance was early 80s West Ham United at the County Ground, where we drew 0-0. I think it was the FA Cup game. And then we went back to the old Upton Park. But we drew 0-0, and I made one of my best saves that day. But I think West Ham, that game there, it was either that or it was one of the playoffs games against Blackburn. I think those were the two games, I think.
Talk to us about the West Ham game, Fraser. I'm particularly fascinated by the save. What's your recollection? Do you have any real recollections of that happening in the moment?
Do you know what? It's difficult. I played 505 games for Swindon, and there isn't many games I can kind of remember. There's certain things that happen, but this one, it was David Kelly. It was the header from David Kelly, and I can still, you know, sometimes you know. Your mind just flickers to it, and I could actually see it happening now. And then the other one was save at. I didn't remember saving many penalties, so it's quite nice that the guys at Swindon.co.uk sometimes put the little bits on, and I didn't remember making that save, didn't remember doing that. But we played Newcastle, and they had the Stratton Bank end, and it was Mickey Quinn. Blasted a penalty, and I went with my top hand to my right hand side, top hand, left hand, and saved it. And the ball went into the Newcastle crowd. I think that's one I remember.
See, I remember I was sat outside my house in Catford, South East London, and I remember listening to the BBC commentate over that save, and I was going absolutely bananas. And it really was one of those that, in your mind's eye, you could kind of. It was so well described by the commentator. And as you say, the clip's still around now. So, it's a golden clip to watch.
Definitely.
And you said the playoff games against Bradford, Blackburn, Fraser. What was it about? What was it about the Blackburn games you remember?
I think it was at Blackburn because Scott Sellers was playing for Blackburn and he had a great left foot on him. And Scott I knew from Sheffield Boys because Scott was in the year above me. I don't know. It was just one of those games where everything fell for me. And I thwarted them quite a bit. And I can't remember who else was up front for Blackburn at the time. And I can't remember too much about it. But, you remember you had a decent game. But I've got to be honest, I don't watch clips. I don't really watch clips anymore. I don't watch videos of myself or anything.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Well, look, Chris, do you want to move us on with the next best of the best? I think, Fraser, you probably already answered this, so we might have to test your memory a little bit further.
Well, I was going to say, Fraser, obviously we've just discussed the rest of this, but what do you think is your best individual one-off save?
Des, so basically it's between two. So I mentioned the one from David Kelly, and then the other one was the save at Tranmere when I've touched the ball onto the post from the header.
Oh, golden save.
And Aldridge, I remember Aldridge screaming to the ref, "It's in, it's in." And I looked at him and went, "John, you know that's not in." And he just started laughing. He went, "You twat, Fraser." I think the two best saves I made was that one from David and the one from I don't know who put the header in, but it was obviously the semi-final against Tranmere at Tranmere.
What about Fraser? Talking about saves, then, can you remember being up the other end and remembering a particular save from your opposite number that really caught your eye, that stuck in your memory? I appreciate you've played in a lot of games, but is there ever another goalkeeper that sort of stopped you in your tracks?
Do you know what? I'm struggling on that one. I can't picture. I can't think of one game, to be fair, when the goalkeepers had a blinder against us.
I'm guessing, I'm going to spin this another way then, and we go back to your Man United loan stint. I'm guessing you saw some absolute mastery between the sticks from Peter Schmeichel up the other end in training.
Oh, mate, he was incredible. The bloke's 6'4", and I've never seen someone get down to a shot in the bottom corner like him ever. He was incredible. The speed that bloke had was phenomenal, and the way he used to come out and do like the starfish, he was just immense. I mean, the forwards just must have wet themselves when he came towards them. He was incredible, and the best thing I always remember about Peter was also his distribution with his throws. A lot of keepers now use the feet and use the side volley. Peter was able to throw it over 50 yards straight onto either into the pass of Ryan Giggs or straight onto Mark Hughes' chest. He was incredible at that.
Mm. And I know back then as well, Fraser, Casper was young, wasn't he? But he was around the United sort of players' tunnel and dressing rooms a fair bit. Do you have any memories of Casper?
Yeah. He could have only been about 6 or 7. He'd got the Schmeichel. He also used to have his Schmeichel goalkeeper shirt on, and whenever we played games and that, the players' lounge, he was always in there. So yeah, I remember Schmeichel, like Casper. He's done well for himself, hasn't he? Really cool.
Oh, he's had a phenomenal career. Very much followed in the old man's footsteps. I don't know whether great keeper. I don't know whether he's quite hit the peaks that his dad did, but he's not far off it, is he? Really? Danish international. He's won the Premier League, and with a lesser club. And he's not exactly. He's played for some big clubs as well. Obviously, he was at City for a while, wasn't he? So, what a career, and brave as a lion. Obviously, when there was the tragedy with the helicopter sort of falling from the sky with the owner, the tales of heroism of Kasper Schmeichel running out the ground towards the wreckage. What a guy. Yeah, no, definitely. Him and his dad are two incredible people. Peter, I've got so much time for, and I learned a lot from him in those 2 months I was there. And I got a lot of respect for the pair of them, really. And Casper, like you say, I don't think he's quite reached the same pinnacle as his dad, but he's still had a fantastic career.
Can I just nip in?
Sorry, Joe.
Sorry, mate. Fraser, this is a bit of a random question. Were you at the club at the time where Nicky Butt pranked Peter Schmeichel and burnt his penis on an iron.
I didn't know that one.
Have you heard
Good
the story?
Lord.
Oh, no. Yeah, Nicky Butt apparently played a prank in the dressing room with, I don't know if it was an iron or a spoon, like a teaspoon he'd left in a hot glass of water for a long time.
Oh, the lads used to do that all the time. So if you've got a coffee and you stir your coffee, then the next thing they do is they just put it on your arm.
Yeah, I think Nicky Butt put it on a bench in the dressing room, and then Peter Schmeichel sat down and burnt his ball bag on it.
Oh,
I tell you what, I wouldn't have fancied being Nicky Butt after that, to be fair.
There's a video of Nicky Butt just explaining it. He said he's been running ever since.
Yeah, exactly. Peter would hold a grudge and all, so all the best on that one, Nick. Yeah.
Rachel, do you want to bring the tone away from ball bags?
I was going to say, how can
back onto the football?
Yeah, how can I follow that one? Okay, bring it back. Who was the best manager you've ever had?
Do you know what? Really, really difficult one, Rach, because my heart would say Lou Macari, because he was the one that brought me to the club. And if you look at the amount of players that Lou brought in on the cheap and sold for big money. So Alan McLaughlin came on a free from United, sold for £1 million. Kevin Horlock we got for next to nothing, sold for 1.5 million. Nicky Summerby we got in cheap, sold for 1.2 million. Paul Bowden we got for about 12 grand from Bath City, sold for $750,000 to Crystal Palace. Duncan Shearer. You know, you look at the players that Lou brought in, and you know, we played a brand of football that was successful at the time. Ozzy came in and took that will and desire and passion and added the finesse to it. But I think Lou, I would say, was probably my best manager. I enjoyed working under Glenn to a certain degree. When Glenn played on the pitch, it was a joy to play in the same team as him. He had that awareness, that ability, he could change things. Fantastic ability. Ozzy added a complete different structure to the place. Really enjoyed working with him. It all went a bit Pete Tong when we went down, when we were relegated. And I think someone mentioned it on Twitter earlier about what is my biggest kind of regret in football, or not so much regret, is do you think that team from the 1990 would have done well in the first division as it was then? And I think I've said a few times, my one weakest regret in football is that team wasn't able to play in the top division, because I think we'd have had a better chance of staying up that year. And but you know, that's life for you. You've got to get on with it.
Yeah, I think the quality of the top flight, Fraser, I don't think there's anyone that would disagree with you. The quality of the top flight back then, and the money train hadn't quite left the station either, had it?
No,
and we could have been on that money train journey as well, with quite a lot of other clubs that have gone on to really establish themselves.
Yeah, I think so. But just going back to the manager, the other manager who I thought was a fabulous bloke to work with, really great human being, was Terry Venables. I learned a fantastic amount with Terry. It's a pity he didn't stay around at Crystal Palace much longer than he did. But he was a fantastic coach, really good coach. You could see why he worked with England, why he worked with Barcelona, because tactically he was fantastic. But as a human being, he was very compassionate, and he was the only manager that ever brought me into his office and talked to me about the opposition. All right, we were playing Swindon, but he said to me he wanted my views on Swindon and which way I think they'd line up, which way I think they'd play. Although I don't think we did very well, I think we lost, but he at least asked me opinion, you know, and he was a big enough man to do that, and yeah, a lot of respect for Terry.
Joe, we're on similar lines with your question, aren't we? Or your category?
We are, yeah. So going on from managers, the next one is coaches. Who was the best coach that you had in your playing career?
I think you've got to say Terry Venables, really. I had 2 months with Brian Kidd at Man United because Kiddo did a lot of the coaching with Alex. But I think Terry Venables really, to work closely with him and his ideas and his football philosophy, I think probably Terry really was the best coach.
So here's a question for you, Frey. So a goalkeeper of a certain era, you transverse certain eras. And there was a period of time where goalkeeping coaching wasn't something that clubs really invested in. At what stage of your career did you actually feel that the role of the goalkeeping coach was really being taken seriously?
To be honest with you, we didn't really have a full-time goalkeeper coach until I ended up at, I think Palace, really. I think I'd left Swindon. We never had a proper full-time goalkeeper coach until I left Swindon.
So Fraser, if I'm going to jump in then on that point, because I was suspecting you were going to say that. And the reason I'm jumping in is I just want to go back to that stuff that you were saying, where you're very humble, and people like Mickey have made certain comments about your career. And as somebody myself that was very frustrated at a lack of goalkeeping coaching I received at a young age, do you think if you'd had specialist goalkeeper coaching earlier in your career, that maybe you because you had all the attributes, do you think you maybe could have had that England shirt?
I don't know really, because I mean, the daft thing about it is I played England schoolboys, I played England youth at Man United. I came to Swindon, and with Lou, he went, "You don't need to do goalkeeper coaching, you just need to be fit." And me and Nicky Hammond were probably the fittest goalkeepers in the whole of the country, bar none. We were incredible, but we just did running all the time. But we were so fit, and that year I got into England under 21s, and even Alex Ferguson phoned up Lou to congratulate him what he'd done with me. He said, because that's a fantastic tribute. We were in the 3rd division, and I was playing England under 21s, which is unheard of. And so I don't know, Mark. I don't know whether to have if I had a full-time goalkeeper coach would have helped. I don't know. So it's a difficult one to look back on. You look back and you say, well, maybe, but I didn't feel I could do much better under Lou. I was getting the attributes, and we were doing well.
I mean, I think the other thing, Fraser, as well, the era of goalkeeping you were playing in with there probably wasn't as much emphasis on you having to be sort of proficient as a keeper on the deck as what you've got now. And I think as a consequence of that, there's a lot of kind of goalkeeping coaches. I'm sure, Martin, you'd have a view on this, but I mean, I noticed when my son played a bit of academy football that there was so much emphasis on the ball at his feet that at times his gloves were rarely getting dirty. It's almost like that part of his game had sorted itself out, and the goalkeeping coaches were concentrating on very specific footwork and distribution that was required from keepers that wasn't required necessarily from an outfield point of view.
Yeah, I mean, we had the back pass rule when Glenn was here. Many a time I've rolled it to Glenn, he's kicked it back. I've rolled it out to Paul Bowden, he's kicked it back, rolled it out to Dave Kerslake. And that's the way that we built up. When the back pass rule came in, cool, it shocked me a little bit, but it was never going to be my thing with my feet. To be fair, under Lou, I just got the ball in my hands and launched it as far as I could. So to be able to do the back pass with my bad foot and all that lot, it was never going to be, one of my fortes really.
Right, gotcha. Martin, do you want to move us along?
Sure. What is your best career memory?
I think you've got to say the Wembley games, because both of those were fantastic achievements for the clubs. They were there, going up to the top division. So I think those really, the Wembley games, and the thing that was nice about it is it was the old Wembley, the Twin Towers, the drive up to the stadium and up Wembley Way and in through, and then coming out at the one end, walking up onto the pitch. They're the memories that I'll never forget. Always remember as a 15-year-old schoolboy, and I've never been so. My knees were shaking walking up onto the pitch in front of 78,000 screaming kids. We're playing Holland at the time. As a 15-year-old kid, was the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done in my life.
But once you're out there, Fraser, even at 15, Were you able to kind of click into the zone, or was that something that just came with time?
I think you do. You learn it as you go on, but I think you're concentrating that hard. But that was the thing. Sometimes with games like that, you concentrate that hard. Somebody asked me what the score was or what had gone on, and I went, I can't remember, because you just concentrate on your job, and that's what you did, and you forgot everything else that went on. I've gone after games and people said that was a great game. We won 3-2. I went, did we? Do you know what I mean? Because I'd just forgotten it all. It's crazy how it works, because you're just concentrating so intently on your job and making sure everyone's defending correctly, picking up right movement on. It was just you're so concentrated, really.
Gotcha. Look, Fraser, next category is mine. It doesn't have to be based on ability. You interpret this however you want. But who is your best opponent?
I think the one that I've got to be honest, the one that I enjoyed playing against the most was Alan Shearer, because he was a great bloke as well. I managed to stop him getting hat tricks in both games against Blackburn in the Premiership, but it was fun to play against him and to pit myself against him, because I had several 1-against-1s which I saved. I stopped him getting the hat trick, and he was very gracious in it. He's very gracious in his compliments towards me, and it was a great tussle to pit yourself against people like that. Is fantastic.
You also developed a really good friendship with Ian Wright, Fraser, didn't you, from the Premier League years, and also the playoff seasons as well.
Oh, Righty, we've had some great battles in our time. But he almost kind of reminds me about that New Year's Day strike that he put in the top corner. So every time I bumped into him afterwards, he's always remembered it. I said, "Oh, you got a terrible memory, Righty." But yeah, he always keeps reminding me of that one. And then to make it onto his advert of the Kendall thing, whatever it was, he's on, was incredible.
Yeah, it was. He took it all the way for you, didn't he? So, what was he? Tell us a bit about Ian Wright as an opponent, Fraser. Was he? Was it? I mean, you talk to yourself about your performance, about or like playing minute to minute, but I've heard so many stories about Wrighty where it was a similar kind of thing, but as soon as he crossed that white line, he was just a wasp. The only way to describe him, he was a pest. He was aggressive. He could be abusive and take it right up to a line. And when him and Mark Bright, well, apparently were a demon double act in that respect. Yeah. But what was he like?
Oh, they were exactly what you've just said. I mean, I remember used to, corners coming over, and I've got Wright and Bright in my ear the whole time. You're going to drop this. You're useless. You're going to drop this. And he did. He was like that the whole time, And then after the game, he was good as gold. But while he was on that pitch, he was, he wouldn't give you an inch. But it was good because it made you tough. It made us tough. Although, to be fair, I did punch Mark Bright's head and break my thumb at one point. But, yeah.
He sounds like a Poundland Harry McCurdy, Fraser.
Yeah, a little bit. I sort of like, I went to punch the ball, punched his head and broke my thumb. And Kevin Morris came on, strapped him and said, "You'll be all right, Fraser, not a problem." Played the rest of the game, come off for half time. Then he's just strapped up even more, went back on, played the game. And after the end of the game, he went, "Fraser, car's here, you're going to hospital." So I had an operation on my thumb the next morning. So, yeah, he's got a hard head as well.
Oh, blimey. Chris, do you want to move us along?
All right, Fraser. Who was your best roommate?
This was the one that I when Mark sent me this through, this was the one I struggled on, really, because I can't remember a lot of my roommates. I remember Al Mack. Obviously, we roomed together quite a bit, coming down from Manchester. We're both at United together, so I roomed with him a bit. I roomed with certain managers put goalkeepers together, so whether that be Nicky, Frank Talia, room with them. And this, I know this is a bit of a name drop, but my first roommate when I went back to Man United was none other than Brian Robson. So I kind of, you can't get any better than having Brian Robson as your first roommate, can you?
Do you know
Not
what,
really.
Fraser? It's funny, actually, because the kind of current generation of football fans that maybe haven't seen Brian Robson play in the flesh, they could do well to watch the Brian Robson documentary on Amazon, couldn't they? Because Brian Robson was a hell of a player. Arguably, at his peak, he was clearly the best player in Europe, if
Oh.
not, and some might say the world.
I think the best English player to ever live, Brian Robson.
Do you know what? He if he was here with us now, he's the nicest bloke you could wish to meet. And he'd be the first in the bar at night to buy you all a drink. He'd be the last one at the bar to make sure you got home all right. He's that sort of bloke. Unbelievable.
Wow.
Fraser, on roommates, didn't you have a story about a certain Frenchman when you went back to United?
Yes. So I was his first. Yeah. So good memory, mate. So we were playing away at Arsenal, and I didn't have a roommate. And then I knocked on the door in the morning. It was Brian Kidd. He said, "Oh, Fraser, I'd like you to introduce you to Eric Cantona." He said he's just going to come in and share the room with you until we go to the game. So yeah. So I had the pleasure of Eric Cantona. Although to be fair, I don't think he spoke more than a couple of words to me. He was on the phone all the time. But yeah, so that was where Eric Cantona first came to Man United. And I was his first roommate. Poor lad.
So, Fraser, you mentioned the late, great Alan McLaughlin as well was a long-term roommate for you. I'm going to ask you to cast your mind back to sort of pre-Wembley, 89, 90. Did you two guys room at the hotel prior to Wembley? And if so, did you get any sense that it was going to be his day?
No, not really. I mean, we stayed at the Marriott just off the A4 Slough. Is it Slough? Or just the next one down from Slough? It might be a bit further down. But we stayed there, and I can't remember a lot about it. I can remember us going out for a walk around the hotel, but and then Glenn Havers meeting and that. But yeah, no, I don't think we did. We were quite calm about the whole thing, to be fair. Oh no, that was the wrong one. That was the one with Glenn, wasn't it? We slayed down. I'm trying to think where we stayed with Ozzy for the 1991. I can't remember, mate.
And then obviously Alan's gone on and had the summer of his life, didn't he? Really, obviously, in Italy.
Yeah.
Obviously, as his roommate at the time, you must have been absolutely buzzing. That must have been quite surreal. Watching him doing that whilst the rest of Swindon was sort of going into meltdown.
I know.
Do you have any recollections of that period in time, Fraser?
You mean when we got relegated?
So obviously we got relegated whilst Alan's off enjoying the sort of strange paradox of a World Cup with the Irish.
No, exactly. I mean, that was fantastic for him. Fair play to him. He'd done well, and he left the club to go to after us to go to Southampton. Which was a great move for him. But yeah, that was a nightmare few months for us finding out. I think I was sat in Bitblops in Old Town when I found out.
Mm. Dare I ask, what was the first word that went through your mind?
Fucking hell. What the fuck we do
Somewhat
now?
unsurprising.
Do you know what I mean? It was stunned. We were stunned, to be fair. It was one of those where they're having a laugh. When first of all we're relegated 2 divisions, you go, what have we done wrong? But yeah, it's just one of those things, mate. We were made a massive scapegoat. We paid the price, didn't we? But the people who didn't do anything wrong, the fans, the players, were the ones that suffered for it.
Yeah, sadly. Well, look, we'll try and keep things upbeat, Fraser. We won't dwell too much on that because I believe Kev's going to step in with the next one.
The best shithouse for and against, my friend.
Best what?
Best shithouse for and against.
What fucking question is that?
Just want to keep you on your toes.
Hey? What you mean worse as in player or actual ground?
Oh no, let's go player. We don't have to worry too much about that. Well, but if you want to take us there, Fraser, we can. But
you take it anywhere you want, mate.
To be fair, the worst ground that we played at was, I think, Stockport. So that was one of the worst grounds we played at. Yeah, that was dreadful. I think the worst player that I got the right ump was Mike Newell when he was at Blackburn, because he was a right pain in the arse. Like Shearer was brilliant, and Mike Newell was just like a stroppy teenager. Like you got complete ends of the spectrum.
Come
as far
on,
as
Fraser. You've got to be able to bring that. You've got to be able to bring that playing relationship alive. Can you give us some examples
of
Mike Newell and sulking?
well, so we were playing away at Blackburn, and I think it was Shearer, and he was only a few yards out, and he tripped over. Right, ball's bounced off his knee. It was an open goal. I was just there, and like it's hit me, and I've saved it and gone. And then like Shearer's just laughing on me, and we're both laughing our heads off. And like Mike Newell starts getting a drop on. Then what the fucking are you doing? And like grab Shearer off me and get up. You know what I mean? It was just really. He was like a petulant child. Me and him were just laid on the floor laughing because he'd obviously cocked it up and he hadn't scored. And Mike Newell was just getting a strop on about it. It was just, it was a bit of a surreal moment, to be honest.
Grumpy bastard Mike Newell. Who would have thought it?
It was, mate. It was.
All right. What we got next? Joe, but we're going to take this into the kit realm now, Fraser, by the look of it.
We are indeed, yeah. Fraser, what were the best gloves you used? What were the best mitts? I mean, I think goalkeeper gloves back in the day were
the best ones were the first ones I ever had. Those like green gardening gloves with the tape. They were great. They were.
With the old ping pong ball strips on them. The old ping pong bat strips.
They were great. They were, weren't they? They got a bit of water on them. They were terrible. You know what I mean? You couldn't do anything with them, but they were great. And I also remember there's a picture of me with England schoolboys. I had my first pair of proper gloves. And I think we'd gone down and trained at Tottenham. And I met Ray Clements, and he was sponsored by Sondico. And he actually got me some Sondico gloves. So I think that was my first ones of proper latex. The ones I enjoyed probably the most was the Royce inside stitching ones that I wore in the Premiership. I had a contract with Royce. It wasn't worth bugger all, but I had a contract with them, and I think they were until I went to Palace and I met Adam Sells, who did have Sells Sport, gave it away, and then he's now got Sells goalkeeping products. I think the Sells gloves were probably the ones I enjoyed wearing the most. The inside stitching, not the inside stitching ones, the roll fingers. I think they were the ones.
So, Fraser, at what stage in your career did you like really start to kind of develop a confidence in because I totally, speaking as an ex-keeper, I totally get like, you know, those sort of old fabric gloves that we kind of grew up with.
Yeah.
They sort of had a sort of limited technical kind of quality to them, but it really, there was a big focus on your hands, weren't there? Like, you know, people like Pat, people don't really understand how great Gordon Banks, Peter Shilton, and Pat Jennings' handling actually was, and so much of that was their actual hands, wasn't it? Whereas now you've got gloves, you've got glove glue, you've got all kinds of stuff going on. At what point in your career did you think the technical switch was going from your hands actually sort of into the product, for want of a better word, that you could have real trust in these products?
Well, I think when I wore Yule Sport for a couple of years, and then the Royce. I think the Yule Sport when I was in the Championship, which was obviously the second division back in those days. I'm trying to think the ones I wore. I think I wore Sondico at Wembley. I think I wore, So I think it was that sort of era. The thing was, in those days, we had the old, and I don't know whether this is one of the best footballs. I don't know whether you've got that question coming up. But the mitre, the plain mitre ball, which was whether that was the mitre multiplex or which one, that was the first ball that was really true. So you used to hit it and it went cleanly. And when it was hit towards you, it didn't move that much. So you had confidence in it. I think what changed, and I felt it when I went to United on loan, and actually I think Glenn brought it to us as well. We had the Adidas Tango ball, and that was the first time that you saw a ball start to move. And I think the problem is nowadays is the technology with the balls. The technology with the gloves have improved, but the balls are moving far more in the air than they ever have done. And that makes it harder for keepers. You know, I was always told, although I do wonder sometimes with the way that some of the keepers just punch everything away, you know, I was always taught you catch everything wherever you can. And And we did in training. We try and catch everything as much as we can, you know.
Yeah.
But and I think it was those sort of, you know, we had the mitre balls, and I was wearing those Eurosport gloves that I started to feel real confidence in the gloves, really.
Gotcha.
How often did you change the gloves as well, Fraser? Did you go for one a week, match days, and then into training? Or?
No, I always used to like wear my gloves in. So I used to wear a glove on, say, a Friday, which was a lightish day, just to get the palms worn a bit. Always used to keep them damp. And I'd say I'd probably get 4 or 5 matches out of them. It depends how dry it was. It depends how much I had to do. But I certainly tried to get... I'm a tight Yorkshireman, you see. Even though I was given the gloves, I don't like using stuff unless I have to. And in those days, I certainly didn't want to keep changing gloves every 5 minutes. I had people supply them with me, but I didn't want to take the mickey out of them. I wanted to use them as much as I could. So I'd say a good 5 or 6 games I'd use them for.
Well, these days, keepers go through one a week, don't they? So,
well, they're giving everything, aren't they? It's a different world now. They're giving everything, and I mean, these are expensive gloves as well. Somebody sells ones now, and they're £100 a glove. Like £100 a glove. Cool. They need to last me a whole season then.
What about so Martin? We're still in the kit arena. Martin, what have you got?
What were your favourite boots throughout your career?
Favourite what? Sorry.
Football boots.
Boots. This was a difficult one because I'm sure I had funny feet, right? I think I had my feet the wrong way around half the time. I remember I had Patrick for a while. You know, when the Kevin Keegan had his Patrick ones, I always remember then. And then when I was wearing Eurosport, they brought out their own boot. So I had a Eurosport boot. But I've got to be honest with you, I can't remember. I need to look at the pictures, what I wore in the Premiership, to be honest. I can't remember which ones I had. And I certainly, I don't think I really wore Adidas. I wore some Adidas. And I remember wearing Valsport when I went to Palace. But I can't remember, you know, the Adidas ones, the old rubbers, and I can't remember what they're called now. They were the classics, the World Cups. So I think I wore the World Cups for a while, but you know what? I definitely didn't wear Asics, and I don't think I wore Puma. So it must have been, I must have wore Adidas more than anything, to be fair.
As long as they weren't the old Dunlop moulded, Fraser, you get away with wearing anything, mate. Don't you worry about that.
I had the Gola ones. I had the Gola ones when I was a kid, mate. They were right.
Nice pair of Gola hat tricks. There's nothing wrong with those.
They were lovely then, mate. They were like cardboard,
weren't they? Choice. So, Fro, what about your favourite Swindon Town goalkeeper shirt? So, if you think about all the shirts you wore over your career with Swindon, which was your favourite?
Do you know what? I looked at some pictures the other day, and I looked at that old Spal one I had when I first came to Swindon. And I'd love to have that now, because I think that's an absolute classic. It was just plain green. I think I've got it on my Instagram post. I put a picture of me and against a picture of Figaro with when he had that pink kit on. I said the 1980s, the 2000s. But I think I wanted, in the Premiership, I asked for a black jersey. But whoever produced it didn't do a great job on it. So I don't know. I think the two jerseys I wore at Wembley. So you'll know these ones, Mark.
Yeah, very well.
So the green one we wore at Wembley, and then the grey one I wore at Wembley, the '93. I think those were. I preferred a plain jersey. The multicoloured ones I wasn't that keen on. So I think the favourite ones were the plain ones. But that 87 one is a classic, and I wish if I'd got a copy of it today, but we weren't allowed kit in those days.
Yeah, as you say, it seemed like players always seem to have sort of spare shirts, didn't they? But goalkeepers, we always tend to just have the one in the bottom of the bag, 2 if you're lucky.
Yeah, but, we never kept them. We weren't allowed them.
Chris, you're up next, mate. What we got next?
All right, Fraser. Who was your best mate from your career in football?
It was funny, really, because I was always a bit of a loner. So I kind of got lots of people who I can pick the phone up and have a chat to. So all my ex-teammates, I spoke to Kevin Orlock last year because I was doing some kit stuff. John Gittins, Al Mack, Bingy, Sean Taylor, Lingy. I kind of got a lot of lads that I could phone up, but I was a bit of a loner myself. So I never really had a real best mate. I mean, my best mate, who was my best man at my wedding, is now a director at Lloyd's Group, or Scotland Group as it is now. He's customer service director there. He was at Allied Dunbar for years. Used to DJ in the amphitheatre in the Brunel. So Paul was my best mate for years. We've lost touch a little bit now, but yeah, he was. I had mates outside of football, really.
Gotcha. What we got next, Kev?
Your favourite pre-match meal?
Well, that obviously changed, mate, because in the old days, it was like steak and baked beans and stuff like that. They wouldn't dream of having that these days.
So I think under Lou, you were still allowed a steak and some baked beans.
No, we were on gruel. No, to be fair, under Lou, we never ate. Everyone had to be careful of what we ate. I've got to be honest with you. We used to have a pre-match meal at 12 o'clock, but I never really ate at 12. I kind of, when I get nervous and wound up, excuse my language, but I almost feel like I want to throw up. So in some games, I've had my best games when I'm always reaching a little bit before games. It's just the nervous tension before you go out. So what I used to do, I used to eat breakfast. So I used to have things like fresh fruit, toast. I may have poached eggs or scrambled eggs, and then finish off with like a muffin, a pastry, or something like that. But I'd have that at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and that'd kind of see me through, because I didn't need to run about like the other players. I didn't really, have too much. I'd also have a coffee or something before I go out. I wouldn't ever touch Lucasade, any of those, because that just didn't sit well with me. So I used to really play almost on empty, really, because it wasn't really. I didn't feel that I needed that extra food, and because I was feeling as I was throwing up, I thought I just can't chance it. So I didn't really have a pre-match meal. I used to have a breakfast instead.
Good, fair play. Rachel, I loved that. This is a cracker of a question.
Yeah, who was your best lonely teammate?
Oh, I mean, you're looking at the times that I was at Swindon. Obviously, Tim Flowers came on loan. We had when I was injured. We had the other Blackburn keeper, Shay. We had Shay down here, and then we had James Milner as well, didn't we? So we had a couple of cracking lads down at the club, really. Who did McMahon? McMahon bought that other keeper from Liverpool, which was like a David James. He was like a David James clone.
Tony Warner.
Oh, he was wasn't the best at all, was he? Even McMahon was going to get rid of him.
What about was Roy Wegley just before you, Fraser, or was that your first season?
No, Roy came as well. Was he on loan? I can't remember, mate. To be fair,
yeah, he was on loan from Chelsea. If I there's an iconic piece of commentary from Vic Morgan with one of, I think Roy only scored a couple of goals, but there's a particular piece of commentary very, very early in my supporting life. Of that commentary, it just sticks in my mind. But I mean, again, cracking player, wasn't he?
Oh, he was. He got great ability, Roy. Do you know what I mean? I tell you what, he's a blooming good golfer now as well. He's playing on the seniors tour, I think. But no, he was fast, tricky, and you didn't know where he was going to put the ball half the time either.
So, what was it talking about the other goalkeepers, Fraser? It's interesting that you sort of defaulted straight into them. What was, I mean, because obviously Shea was playing out of his skin at Swindon, wasn't he? I mean, hardly conceded a goal during his time there. Was that, and as such a young kid, I mean, you must have known that he was marked for greatness that he went on to achieve, surely.
Well, he was, and then because we also had Tom Heaton came, didn't he, as well on loan when I was coaching with Reese. You know, he looked a good player, but I didn't expect him to go in and do what he's done as well. I mean, he's done fabulous, hasn't he, really? But he had to leave Man United to do it. But no, Shea was, you know, you could see Shea was a talent. The only thing that worried me was whether he was big enough. But he certainly proved it. And I mean, he's had a fantastic career. And a lovely lad as well. Tim, I knew quite a bit about because Tim and me grew up together. We both played England youth, England under 16s. We're both in the same European Championships. And I think Tim was going to get the nod instead of me and broke his thumb. And I got the nod instead and played. So I knew Tim anyway. And he did well. You know, Tim was always a good goalkeeper. He had a good career as well.
Yeah, he was outstanding. What, Joe, what have we got next?
Oh, sorry, mic's off there. So next up, what was your favourite post-match tipple?
Oh, I was never really a drinker. The only time that I had a few beers and stuff like that. You might have a bottle of beer after the game, but I wasn't really much of a drinker. If we hadn't had a good day and I went home, I'd hit the Southern Comfort, and I've had one or two bad experiences with that as well. That was the one that I used to hit that with a bucket of ice and a bottle of Southern Comfort. I can still taste it.
Southern Comfort drinker, you dark horse, Fraser. I didn't have you down for that kind of patter.
To be fair, I've grown up since then, mate. I'm on Kraken now.
Not even going to say a word on that one, mate.
Whenever we lose from now on, I'm going to treat myself to some comfort.
Yeah, I don't. Honestly, cool. I think I got alcohol poisoning at one point, but hey ho.
I'm sure there's a cocktail there. I don't know. I just got a feeling, Rachel, that maybe it could be your area. You come up with some sort of Southern Comfort style cocktail that we could all bosh back in the legends. Name it after Fraser.
Oh my God, that's my dream. That's a mission. I'm on it.
I'm going to hold you to it. I'm going to hold you to it.
Fine. Yeah, please do. Yeah. Mission on.
Right. What we got next? It's Martin, I believe you're up next.
Yeah, it is. What was the best ground you visited?
I mean, I've got to be biased, really, and I've got to say Old Trafford. I mean, I also had the pleasure. I played for England schoolboys in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin at 15 years of age. That was a fantastic place to go to. And then to play at Wembley Twin Towers, I think you can't get any better than that. Trying to think where else I've been to.
Yeah, Fraser, I've got a question for you, Fraser, about Old Trafford, because not everyone's been to Old Trafford, and the view, the angle that you get from the pitch, from the cameras, doesn't quite reveal just how raised that pitch is and what a slope you've got coming off that pitch too.
Yeah, we used to come off down the halfway line. So the changing rooms used to be the halfway line, and we used to come up that way where the dugouts are now. You used to come in between the dugouts. That was your entrance onto the pitch. So it has changed quite a bit. But yeah, it has got a fair little trip up to the pitch.
It's like literally it's about a metre in the air, isn't it? If not a bit more.
Yeah, no, it is, mate. It's got higher, I think.
I mean, I've always been amazed there's not been more injuries at Old Trafford of people literally tumbling off the pitch. And people might think that I'm being ridiculous, but if you actually stand pitch side at Old Trafford, like you don't realise, like if you were midair and someone's giving you a bit of a shoulder and you come down, lose your footing, you are literally going flying, aren't you?
Yeah, no, you are, mate. I think going back to the best pitches, I was fortunate I never played there, but the Emirates. I've got to be honest, the pitch, I met the groundsman. It was when I was doing some work on some lighting rigs, and I met the groundsman there, and I tell you what, the pitch there, it was fantastic when I went. absolutely fantastic. That was one ground I wish if I'd played on. I mean, we obviously played at the old Highbury, which is an iconic stadium. But yeah, the Emirates is superb. I haven't been to Tottenham's yet, which looks a fantastic stadium as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people that I've still not been to Spurs' new stadium, but most people that I speak to are telling me it's the greatest stadium they've ever been to.
Yeah, I went to the Spurs Stadium the other week, where the Challenge Cup final, and the stadium is out of this world. Probably the best stadium I've ever been in, just in terms of the fan experience there.
Yeah, but that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about having those. You know, I know Clem wants to really change the stadium at Swindon as well and increase that for the fans. You know, it's going to be a lot harder. You know, they're not cheap, these facilities, are they? You know, so you know, whatever he can do to help will be fantastic.
Yeah. I dream of having some of the beers that they've got available at Tottenham, you know, inside the county ground. That'd be absolutely incredible. I mean, you know, everything from the acoustics, you know, the whole thing has been so well thought through. Yeah. But that's for us to worry about or another time. Rachel, you've got an interesting question.
Yeah, what has been the best comment from a fan?
Best comment?
Yeah, best comment from a fan.
Oh, I don't know. That's a hell of a question. I don't know, really. Probably Mark's introduction to this tonight, I think. I don't know, Rachel. I can't. Yeah.
Lots of declarations of love.
Yeah, no, I can't really think of what. Because people have said some lovely things about me, which are, you know, really humbling. But yeah, I can't think of anything that sticks out that I go.
Is it Fraser? I might be able to help you along the way here. Cast your mind back to, say, being on the pitch. It could be best interpreted however you like. Can you ever think of anything that was said to you from the stands that stuck in your mind, whether that be a compliment or otherwise?
Yeah, well, the worst one was. So I don't know how many know that there's a film called Digby, the Biggest Dog in the World, right? So I wouldn't mind, but the schedulers always used to put that in just after Christmas. So wherever we used to go just after Christmas, and we got paired away at Barnsley, which is not too far down the road from where I come from, and I got absolutely hammered about this film. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the worst, really.
Being compared to a giant sheepdog.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one that I felt like I wanted to like dig a hole, and the fans absolutely came me, but then I got away with it, was playing at Roker Park, and we changed ends, and I passed Tony Norman on the halfway line, shook hands with him, going towards the Roker Park end. So basically, there's 7,000 or 8,000 fans in that end, all standing, and I get to the 18-yard box and I trip up flat on my face. So you can imagine that the whole Roker Park absolutely came me, right? And I just wanted to get a shovel and dig a hole. But then I saved a penalty in about the first 10 minutes, and that was it. I had a great relationship with the Sunderland fans ever since. And they were great. You know, I played at Sunderland a few times and they actually gave me man of the match, which was nice. So you kind of remember the nice bits. The worst bits, I suppose, was I felt a bit of danger when we played at Middlesbrough in Ayerson Park, and they brought batteries into the ground, and I think I had a D battery just missed my head.
Right. That was me, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, mate, it was you or that cousin of yours, mate.
It's strange family, our family, mate.
I wouldn't mind, but they're all dead, mate. You know what I mean? If they'd been all right, I'd put them in a glove bag and come off. I'd been all right, but no, that was probably the worst. And the worst abuse I got was probably we played Chester, and the ground was really short, and you got this little Scouse kid that couldn't have been older than 7 or 8, and he just effed and blinded me all the time. And I said, "Where's your parents?" And he said, "They were at home and all this lot." I said, "Well, go home to your parents and behave yourself." You know, I said if that was if my mother was here, she'd wash your mouth out with soap. That's what we used to get told all the time. But yeah, that was probably the worst abuse, like from a young kid, you know, and you go, really? But
Do you have any? Do you have any? I mean, from my neck of the woods, Fraser. Do you have any sort of memories of the old den?
Oh, the old den was frightening because it was the time of Teddy Sheringham was playing, Tony Cascarino, and then the old lad in midfield. What was his name?
Terry Hurlock.
Terry Hurlock.
Oh, you didn't mess with him. Tell you what,
I've still got a scar from him.
I don't know whether I want to be in the stand with the fans or on the pitch against Terry Hurlock. He was frightening, but yeah, that was intimidating. The den was always intimidating. But I think one of the worst places we played at was Cardiff City's ground. So it was close to me retiring, and I think I was on my last few games with QPR, and we used to have to warm up down the side. And Ian Holloway said to me, "Fraser, just going to have a little warm up." I said, "You can fuck off." I said, "I ain't warming up in front of them idiots." Do you know what I mean? I said, "I'm staying where I am. Thank you very much." But yeah, I think they were the worst. The Cardiff City fans were hostile, to say the least.
Yeah, gotcha. Chris, what we got next?
This probably isn't too much different from that last one, really, Fraser. What was the best chance?
Bloody hell. I'm a nightmare with these things because I think dementia's kicking in. I can't remember really. Who did? I'm struggling on that. Have you got any pointers? I might be able to remember something.
Well, I'll tell you, then put a slightly different slant on it, Fraser. When was the first time you ever heard a crowd singing your name, and how unusual was that to hear?
Do you know why it was? And I the big thing for me was when I left Swindon and I came back to play at the ground. Or I always remember we played QPR. I was playing for QPR, and Swindon came down to Loftus Road. I think it was when old Ruddock was playing, and the reception I got off the Swindon fans, the QPR boys were going to me, "We've never seen a reception from a visiting fans like you've got." He said, "You've got a better cheer than the home goalkeeper." I said, "But that's because I've been there for so long and I got a good relationship with them all." So I think that was the one thing that always sticks in my mind is being whenever I've come back to play. Crystal Palace, they said the same. The boys said the same. Is that we've never seen a player get that sort of reception, and so that for me probably sticks out more than anything.
Yeah, I remember being there that night at QPR, and in fact, it was your reception that probably made that night sort of bearable, because we got thumped 4-0 and Andy Gurney offered out half the away end. So yeah, cheers for that, Fraser.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
At least took the sting out of the night. Right, what we got next? We've got Kev. You're up.
Cast your mind back many, many, many years ago when you were growing up. Who was your goalkeeping idol, your hero?
Right, so in my era, there was two goalkeepers, Peter Shilton and Ray Clements. So for me, I kind of almost modelled myself on Ray Clements, because Peter Shilton for me was manufactured. He trained, he worked. If you've read his autobiography, he used to hang himself from the banister at his house to sort of lengthen his arms. He'd do everything he could. But for me, Ray Clements was a natural. He was the same as me, threw with his right hand, kicked with his left foot. And I modelled myself on him, really. And that was the way that I wanted to play, the way that Ray Clements played. So he was my idol, really.
Would you have said then that you thought Ray Clements was a better all-round keeper than Peter Shilton?
For me, I preferred Ray because for me he was a natural. He was a natural goalkeeper. He got the athleticism. He got the technique. He never looked panicked. He covered his box. He communicated well. Shilts was a fantastic goalkeeper. No taking that away from him. But for me, Ray was the natural.
And who'd be your favourite now in modern football now? When you watch football now, who would be your favourite keeper to watch?
Do you know what? I'm struggling a little bit with some of the keepers now because I thought David De Gea sometimes is phenomenal, but I just don't think they play the way that Schmeichel used to play. I don't think they command the box the same. I don't see a goalkeeper commanding a box and dealing with things like us as keepers used to have to do.
Phrase, we mentioned Casper, didn't we? I mean, even Casper's seen as being a bit of a throwback compared to a lot of modern goalkeepers.
Yeah, I find it difficult because I think they're relying on defenders to do a lot of their work, and I don't see goalkeepers commanding their box like they should do. Do you know what I mean? It was, to be honest, it was nice seeing JJ whatever game I came to, Sutton game. He did. He came out and dealt with things in his box, and I went, fair play to him. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because that's how I was always brought up. That area is yours, and you deal with it. So, and I don't think a modern keeper did much. I thought he had a fantastic game, the Real Madrid lad, when they played Liverpool. I thought he was
Courtois,
yeah. I thought Courtois.
Yeah, he is a throwback. If you do watch Courtois, he is a throwback.
Yeah, he's a little bit, isn't he? I've got to be honest, I haven't watched a lot of football this year. So I can't really comment too much. But from what I have seen, I disappointed a little with some of the keepers.
Mm. Well, look, let's not spend too much time in the present phrase. Joe's going to take your memory right back.
I'm going to take it as 10 years before I was born. 1987 Priestfield. What's your best memory of that game?
Priestfield, that's when we lost 1-0, wasn't it? Was it 1-0?
Sorry, it shouldn't be. I think that should be Selhurst.
Oh, Hannah's. You've done me up there.
Sorry, that's a typo on my behalf. I apologise.
Oh,
Selhurst, Fraser. Have you got one memory that you could share from '87 that really sticks in your mind?
So that year, Lou Macari offered a car for the man of the match, right? And that's why we ended to see Chalky scoring 2 goals. He went to shoot on sight, Chalky, because he wanted that car. Suffice to say, it never materialised. But we got promoted and we didn't worry. Yeah, Chalky will still be after that now. Where's my car? But that was Lou's motivation. We didn't need, to be fair, we didn't need a lot of motivation, mate. It was a good result, and Chalky done well. He played well for us that day. As long as we kept him on side.
Going back to the county ground game though, Fraser, in the build up to Selhurst. I mean, what must have gone through your mind because you must have been, he came in from a bit of an angle, didn't he, Charlie Henry? But when Charlie Henry's hit that rocket, what must have gone through your mind?
I couldn't believe it when he's hit that, because that was some strike from Charlie. It's funny, you remember certain, I haven't got the best of memories, and I remember certain things, but that strike from Charlie, you can still see it today. Do you know what I mean? Another day, that would have gone straight over the Stratton Bank, and then they did in Swindon Road somewhere. But on that occasion, Charlie there was no stopping that.
How did you celebrate it, Fraser?
I can't remember, mate.
Oh, that Southern Comforts took your memory, isn't it?
Lou was against us drinking, so I don't think we had a drink in public. Let's put it that way.
Ah, gotcha. Well, look, Martin's going to edge us along the timeline.
What was your best memory of Wembley 1990?
I think the best memory of 1990 was coming down Great Western Way when we'd won, and actually the bridges before we come off the M4, because the amount of people that were out on our way home was incredible. And I think that is my one underlying memory of the 1990 is coming back home and seeing the amount of people out when we come back home. It was like something that I never ever forget. It was incredible. So thank you for all those people that came out. It certainly made it special for us anyway.
Oh, amazing. Oh, well, and Rachel, do you want to edge us a little further along the timeline?
What was your best memory of Wembley 93?
Chalky falling over and getting a penalty. And and Zippy scoring. I think for me, 1993 was always one that it was more of a relief rather than a celebration, if you know what I mean. It's kind of, we'd done it 3 years previous and we deserved to go up. So to get to Wembley in 93 and to win, for me, it was always one of relief. Well, we deserved to go up because of what happened 3 years previous. And it kind of, I didn't have that same feeling and I didn't feel that same celebration because I still felt the pain of 3 years previous to that. So I just felt that we'd done it and we deserved it and that was it. And I didn't have that same feeling about the celebration, really.
I mean, I'll be interested to get your take on this, Chris, because I certainly remember I was 15 going on 16 at the time. And my feelings in the stand almost mirror Fraser's on the pitch. I remember a feeling of, it was almost like justice. Whereas in 1990, I just remember the final whistle went and I burst into tears of joy that I only ever have experienced since on the day my kids were born, my twins. But yeah, 1993, incredible experience. The game was phenomenal, but there was something about 1990. It was almost like a purity about it.
Yeah.
Was it similar for you, Chris?
It was very similar for me there because I was, what's through the maths is right. I was probably about 17 then. So I was obviously a very similar age to you, and because of what had happened 3 years before, you were so elated to then have it taken away. This time, feeling that it wasn't going to be taken away, and it just felt that that bit of relief. But I couldn't watch that penalty. I just couldn't watch it.
Did you watch it, Fraser?
No, I never used to watch penalties. I used to crouch down and not look.
Because it was. Yeah. All I remember about that game as well is, we went 3-0 up and we were in control. But then Leicester came back. Yeah. But as soon as Leicester got it back to 3-3, for some reason they stopped playing.
Yeah, they did.
Let us back into the game.
To be fair, one of them was a foul on Yoji. We don't need to say about that now.
No, it was quite clearly a foul on the keeper, wasn't it? Well, I think that was that. Steve Walsh gave you a good old elbow into the back of the net, basically, didn't he?
He did, to be fair. But it was different them days, wasn't it? They didn't protect keepers as much as they do now. But
you look at a keeper now and it's a foul.
Oh, mate, you've just got to blow at them. But then they roll about. I saw, Wes did it a couple of times and no one touched him and he was rolling around like someone had shot him. And I went, why are you doing that? Do you know what I mean? I was always told, I always remember, I think we played York at the Carrying Ground. There's a big coloured lad played up front for York. Ball come in, I caught it, and he's absolutely twatted me. And I was like on the deck, and I was in a lot of pain. And he looked at me. I turned around and I went, "Oh, is that the best you've got?" And he went, "Fair play, son." Shook me by the hand, picked me up, and didn't touch me for the rest of the game. And that's how we were taught in them days. But nowadays, they just fall over for a foul all the time. But it's the way life's changed, isn't it? Really.
Well, Chris, you've got I hope your mic's still unmuted, mate, because you've got the next one.
This is going to be an interesting one, Fraser. So, tell us about the best Nicky Hammond Fraser Digby rivalry story.
Do you know what? We never had a rivalry really. We got on fantastic, me and Nick. Nicky's the godfather to my oldest son. And we kind of lost touch a little bit now because we've all gone our separate ways. But Nick was great. Nick was one solid lad, and he'd back me to the hill. He worked tremendously hard, and he'd be my right hand man really. There was never really a rivalry between us, and it was great. We were together for 8 years, and he was one top lad really, Nick.
Whenever people used to ask me about Swindon's goalkeepers, I used to always speak with such pride that we had Fraser Digby that come to us from Man United and Nicky Hammond that had come to us from Arsenal. Yeah. So do you think the reason you got on so well was that you both kind of had that sort of route into Swindon, sort of from such premium clubs?
I think the thing is, it's the way, it's like anything, Mark, it's the way you've been brought up. And, I was fortunate to spend my early years under Eric Harrison at Man United. Now, anyone that knows Eric Harrison knows he was the one that was, brought up for the class of '92, and they, those players, your Beckhams, your Butts, your Nevilles, respected Eric tremendously. He wasn't an easy bloke to get on with. He taught you the right way. He taught you how to behave. He taught you how to be as a player and to be as a man. And there was a lot of lessons we learned from Eric that we brought through to Swindon. And I think Nick was the same at Arsenal. They were brought up right, and it was a great footballing lesson as well as being a lesson in being a good person, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, a question from me, Fraser. Your best post-season holiday destination?
Oof. It was funny. Because you used to bump into the footballers wherever you went. You used to bump into them everywhere. I spent probably 4 or 5 years at the same hotel in a place called Fig Tree Bay in Protaras in Cyprus. I got to know a couple from Cheltenham there, and we used to book our rooms every year, book our sunbeds for the kids, and it was a great place for the kids to be. And I think, the family put up a lot with you training all season, and then to know that they've got a good few weeks out there it was a lovely place. And it's funny, Alan Pardew was out there. I saw him. Steve Cottrell was out there, and quite a few other players. I remember there was a lad that played at. He was at Grimsby, but he was at somewhere else, and I've forgotten his name now. But we actually had a polo game, English versus the rest, and it got into a scrap really because we weren't going to lose the English. It was all it was players at the time, but it was good. It was a nice place to go, to be fair. So I was
being an army brat as well. I lived in Cyprus for 2 years, and I know Fig Tree Bay very well.
It was a lovely place. It was unspoiled at the time. The hotel was right on Fig Tree Bay, and it was a lovely hotel. And it was quite interesting because the people that owned it, the owners, had been kicked out of their place in, is it Famagusta?
I'm vaguely familiar with that as well.
Yeah, that's where the north meets the south.
Yeah.
And they got kicked out by the Turks. They had a lovely hotel up there and ended up down in Protaras and built one in it. It was a nice place to go.
Well, okay, we're on the home stretch now, Fraser. Rachel's got the next one for you, but yeah, this one's going to be a bit Marmite.
Yeah, so I thought this would be really interesting. What's your best Steve McMahon story?
Yeah. Right. My favourite Steve McMahon story, really. So he dropped me. We played away at Oldham, and so I don't think it was even on the bench. I was in the stand, and he went out, and within 5 minutes, he clattered someone and broke his arm, and I couldn't stop laughing. And I think he saw me laughing as well, which didn't go down too well. But that's probably the one I can say without being sued or someone coming after me. Or that was probably the most polite one I could come up with.
All right, well, we'll move you on quick, Fraser. We'll get you out from the vice of the Steve McMahon tales. Joe, What you got?
So, from Steve McMahon onto John Gorman. What's your best John Gorman story?
I think with John, we just got relegated from the Premiership, and our pre-season was a trip to Cyprus. And the favourite shout was, "This is not a holiday." Yeah, we went to Ayia Napa for one day. We played 3 games against the 3 top teams in Cyprus, got battered every game. Talking of Brian Kilcline, so he was drinking and playing cards with Luke Nyholt on the way over. Now, whatever you do, you don't drink and play cards with Luke because you don't end up very well. So we got there. We were supposed to be training in the afternoon. Killer never made it. We were due at training at 8 o'clock next morning. Killer never made it. And then the afternoon, he was finally surfaced, and he couldn't even walk in a straight line. It was unbelievable. So, and it was a great trip, but it wasn't a holiday. So this is not a holiday. Was the best shout ever.
Martin, what we got there? You'll notice a pattern here, Fraser. What have we got next, Martin?
What is your best Glenn Hoddle story?
I don't know with Glenn. Glenn was an interesting character. He didn't give a lot away. He was very much with Glenn. Everything was black and white. There was never any grey areas. And Johnny Gorman was a great foil for him because he used to look after him. So there's nothing really I could pick about Glenn. You know, obviously you had the stuff about Elaine, the jewelry lady. I know that Nick Hammond went to see her a few times. A few other players went to see her. He was very free in his speech about her. You know, any players that were struggling with an injury, go and see. Was it Elaine? I can't remember her name now. Was it Elaine Drury?
Eileen Drury.
Eileen, wasn't it? Yeah. So there wasn't any. I can't think of any other things I could say about Glenn, really. You know,
do you remember your early thoughts, Fraser? Do you remember your early thoughts when Glenn was appointed? Because obviously, Ozzy was a huge name, and losing Ozzy must have felt like a real blow. I mean, did you have any inkling that Glenn was going to be coming in, or if not, what went through your mind when you heard his name? That, like, blimey, this is going to be our new gaffer.
Well, I mean, you look at all the managers that we've had, the Lou Macari, Ozzy Ardiles, Glenn Hoddle. You're not going to get many better names than that. So to have someone like Glenn come to Swindon as player manager was a massive boost for the club, you know. And I didn't realise it was all down to Alan. Oh, I've forgotten his name now. He was with Ozzy, the left winger, Tony Galvin. It was Tony Galvin that spoke to Ken Chapman and said, "What about Glenn?" Because Galvin had gone with, I don't know whether he went with Ozzy or he stayed with us. I can't remember what happened. But
he went off to Newcastle, didn't he, with Ozzy?
Yeah, but he recommended Glenn to. But the only problem is unbeknown to us, a deal had been arranged with the chairman of Chelsea at the time, which was it was the big fella, wasn't it? The old fella.
Ken Bates.
Ken Bates.
And problem was the deal had been done that if he shouted, we had to give Glenn back to Chelsea, and that's exactly what happened. So it was already, on the cards, but unbeknown to us, you know. But it was the only way that Ken could get Glenn to the club.
All right. Well, what was your best Ozzy Ardiles story, Fraser?
I mean, he used to nick fags off everyone around the table whenever he went out. He nicked fags off my missus and everything. You know what I mean? Ozzy and his wife were lovely people. You know, we had kids, and he used to buy everyone presents, and they were a lovely couple. They were a lovely family. Ozzy was brilliant. You know, I mean, we used to train in, and it was all you used to hear was play, play, play. That's all he used to say. Obviously, in his Argentinian accent, but he was very much one for the players. He wanted to do everything for the players. So it was sad to see when we got relegated. It all fell apart really, and Ozzy needed to go because he was a nice fella as well. You know, he was great with the players. He helped everyone, and he brought some good lads in. You know, Mickey and that, and I think we had a good rapport. You know, we had that catch up with the players of 1990. Well, it's a couple of years ago now, but it was great. Everyone came back, you know, and that's the respect we got for Ozzy, really.
Well, Chris is going to ask you your final question of the evening, Fraser.
He's gone to sleep.
I think he has. Chris, have we lost you?
I'm sorry, I didn't put my mic on.
That's all right, mate.
So I said it's been a fantastic evening and full of intrigue. But to bring the curtain down, what's your best Lou Macari story?
Oh, Lou, cool. So I was at home, and I just popped out to the chippy. Bearing in mind that Lou didn't like us to eat crap stuff, I said to the missus, look, I can't be bothered to cook tonight. I'm just going to go out to the chippy and get some fish and that. And he phoned our house, and my missus thought it was Colin Calderwood. And Lou didn't say who it was. He went, she went, oh, Colin, he's just gone out to the chippy. Can I give him a message? He went, no, that's all right. I'll catch up with him tomorrow. So I got in and she went, Colin's just phoned you. I said, yeah, okay. I thought that's not Colin, because Colin wouldn't have phoned me. He'd just text me something. I got into training the next day. We played the game, and then on the Sunday, he had me in with the other players, like he did a lot of time, but he made me run. He said, you're running today instead of going in goal. He said, because you went to the chippy on Friday night. I went, you're having a laugh, aren't you? But he did. He made me run just because I went to the chippy on a Friday night.
The stories of Lou Macari's spies. I mean, I know that was something that you talked to a lot of the lads from the Paolo Di Canio era, and Paolo kind of brought that back as well. But Lou's had a lot of eyeballs around the town, Fraser, didn't he?
Oh, mate, honestly, if you went out, he could tell you exactly what players had gone out, what he drank, how long they were out for, what time he got in, because he just got the whole. But this was a funny thing about it. He got the whole town in his pocket, really. So people were phoning him saying, Lou, I've seen so-and-so, I've seen so-and-so. They're out. And he used to come out some nights just to see him was out and about. He's incredible. But the problem was he tried to do the same with someone like Frank McAvenny at West Ham in London.
That ain't going to work, is it?
You know what I mean? But he was, he did. He knew everything was going on. And you know, we did have to put up with some stuff under Lou, but you look at the results we had. You look at, we won games in the last 10, 15 minutes. We overran teams. You know, it's kind of, you know, you can't say anything negative against him because of what we achieved.
Fraser, have you seen the movie, the Neil Baldwin movie, Marvellous?
No, I haven't. No.
You should. You'd enjoy that, because there's a mutual experience that you and I shared with Lou Macari that makes an awful lot of sense when you watch that movie. And the way that Lou's portrayed is truly, truly wonderful. And obviously Lou's gone on to do some incredible charity work, hasn't he? You know, up and around the Staffordshire area with his homeless charity work.
Yeah, he's done a fantastic job. I mean, he's had a sad story because obviously one of his sons committed suicide, and he's had a lot of disappointment in his life like that. But what he's done with this charity is phenomenal. You know, he's a complex character, Lou. But, you know, he's doing some fantastic things for the good, and he did a fantastic job for us, you know. So, you know, you couldn't say anything negative about him.
Well, and likewise, Fraser, we couldn't say anything negative about you, mate. It's been a truly brilliant evening. Have you had fun? Have you enjoyed yourself?
Yeah, do you know what? It's great to look back. You know, I retired 17 years ago. I left Swindon in 1998, you know, and as you get older, and, you know, my new partner now knows nothing about my former life, you know, and it's funny for her when she sees people come up and ask for the autograph and stuff like that, because it's all new. But it's lovely because Swindon is such a great club, and we've had some fantastic successes. It's been through some doldrums. I mean, I hope now with Clem and Rob on board at the club, he's doing some fantastic things for the club and the community, and bringing you guys, the fans, you know, bringing you into the club again, you know, and that's what it's about, you know. Unfortunately, we had Lee Power for several years, and, you know, and it wasn't a good vibe, you know. Nobody knew what was going on. It was all kept secret, and, you know, God knows how much money's gone out of the place. But with Clem and Robin there now, I just can't see anything but positive. You know, it's a bit down at the moment, but I'm sure he'll come up with a great alternative for manager, and we'll go on from there. And I can't see anything but positive for the club, really, which is great.
Well, all being well, Fraser, I think I'd speak for everyone when I say we would all love to see a lot more of you at the county ground, whether that be in the stands with us, or whether that be, you know, in an ambassadorial role up and around the Arkles, or, you know, the new corporates that are being built over the other side of the ground in the Don Rogers. I think there's one wish most Swindon Town fans have, mate, and that is that we see a lot more of you on a Saturday. So, all being well, all prayers in the right place, mate. We'll see that as a reality moving forward. But listen, I'll just sign off by saying this, Fraser. I'll remind everyone what I said at the start. 505 appearances, 12 years of service to Swindon Town Football Club, multiple promotions, multiple Wembley wins, more happy memories than I could possibly even count myself, Fraser. And for that, we say thank you, buddy. Thank you ever so much.
No, my pleasure, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And as I say, we've got some fantastic memories that will live with us for years, and that's what it's about, Mark. It's about those memories that we've all lived through and we've enjoyed. I've been fortunate to live the life I have done, played the football I have done at a great club like Swindon, having supporters like yourselves, and I just hope that we have many more years of success, really.
God bless you, Fraser. Well, listen, you're more than welcome to hang around, but equally, I appreciate you got to get out for work tomorrow, and we got a few bits of any other business to sort of have a natter about, mate. So
right,
the floor's yours to remain on, but equally, you can jump off any time you please.
No, man, I'm gonna have to get me out. I'm gonna have to get crashed now. I'm actually off tomorrow. I'm going to see George Benson at Hampton Court. So I've got to.
Someone else, not Jack Savaretti this time, mate.
No, I'm seeing him on Friday, mate.
How many times have you watched him in concert now?
I've seen Jack 5 times. I tell you what, the best place ever to go and see him. Emma bought me tickets
Rome.
to see him in the Royal Opera House in Rome.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
And meet him. The bloke is a great lad, and I saw him at Cheltenham, the racecourse the other week. But yeah, top lad, great singer. But yeah, I'm looking forward to George tomorrow. To be fair,
George Benson. What was the venue?
Hampton Court. If you get to go to Hampton Court, it's a great venue for a concert. It's all done in the like the courtyard. They set the stage up. You get people sat on the ground level, and then they raise a little platform up behind. But it's a fantastic venue to go and watch a concert in. Quite an intimate venue.
Well, you enjoy that, Fraser. You go with our best wishes, buddy. Thanks ever so much for joining us, big man. We'll see you again soon, hopefully.
No problem. My pleasure. Take care, everybody. And
all the best, Fraser.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Ta-ra, mate.
Bye.
Wow. Fraser Digby, ladies and gentlemen. He certainly doesn't disappoint. I said it right at the very, very start of the show. I used that word legend, a much overused term in football. But when it comes to certain playing personnel, certainly in my time following the club, there are very few legends quite like Fraser. A few bits of any other business, guys. So I think I'll look to bring. I mean, guys on the panel, you just jump in as and how you choose. I think we'll start off by saying we're still a little frustrated in the management stakes, but I think the general chatter that I started hearing being pushed around Twitter tonight, and Chris, I don't know whether you've got a view on this, but seems to be a feeling that it's going to be the next sort of 48 hours we can expect an announcement. But I don't know whether that is just more speculation or whether there's anything driving that.
I think that's probably a bit of speculation because personally, I'm not expecting anything till next week. But I'm not really, when it's decided, it's decided. As long as it's done by the start pre-season, I'd rather them take that little bit extra to make the right appointment rather than do something just to get it done.
Yeah, you know what, Chris? I think you bang on. I think from my point of view, I understand the anxiety, particularly when last summer weren't that long ago, was it? Let's be honest. And that was a pretty traumatic experience for all of us. Having hoped that we were going to be going into a pre-season of stability and, continuing to build on last season's semi-success. I can understand why there are anxieties, but I think Sandro Di Michele has made a very, very good point, really, in terms of that we need to make sure we take our time and get this appointment right, because what we don't want to be doing is 3-6 months down the line, we've made a massive wreck and we've got to start again. So it is only right that they do the due diligence, isn't it?
I would rather take an extra 3 or 4 days to get the proper appointment in rather than have a horrendous start to the season, like you say, and then the season's possibly even gone by then. So it's so important that we actually make the right appointment.
Yeah, here's one for you, Chris. I mean, for me, I've been looking at it from a point of view of progression. I mean, last summer, Ben Garner was appointed. Didn't have a clue really who Ben Garner was, apart from the fact that he'd had a bit of a mare at Bristol Rovers, and I was aware that he's a local lad to where I live in terms of his coaching background at Palace, but I didn't really know a huge amount about his coaching, about his style of play and his ethos, and I didn't realise how well in parts that was going to kind of suit the appetite of Swindon Town fans. I think looking down the odds list, and appreciate we don't want to read too much into that, but there's not many names on the list now that I wouldn't really be happy. I wouldn't be particularly unhappy about. And certainly, if you go with the top sort of 4 or 5 options that we've got sat in the odds at the moment, I'll be over the moon with all 4 of them. Is there? I mean, if that in itself is an indication of progress, Chris, that's got to be a healthy thing, isn't it? Year on year.
Yeah, I certainly think the mindset between this time last year is completely different to what we got now, because last year, we were wondering if we were going to start the season, never mind who was going to manage us. So whoever it was, I think we weren't massively fussed about. And I have a pretty good idea who you would prefer to get the job.
Well, I think most people that would take a glance at my Twitter profile would see that I've been pretty much advertising my preference from the minute it became clear that we were going to be losing Ben Garner. But Martin, I'll bring you in at this stage, mate, if I may. Did you, Sandro Di Michele's had his first sort of couple of sort of public speaking appointments, speaking to the official supporters club, and doing a little bit with the BBC. What's been your take on Sandro and his sort of early engagements with the fans? I'm interested in your view, both indeed as a coach and what he talks about in terms of the money ball approach, but also just in terms of his general patter around Swindon Town.
I like that he's engaged with some of the outlets already, because then it gives us as fans a chance to kind of make a bit of an opinion on what he seems like as a person, as much as you can do from just listening to someone online. So I think it's good he's come out early doors, and even when we haven't got a manager in place, he's still there answering a few questions. I like that he's kind of going along the same recruitment process as what has been worked really well at Brentford. It does kind of give me a bit of hope that we get the right manager in, that can actually be quite a successful season, because it's a model that's worked quite well for a lot of clubs. I know people like Tyler's really excited about that too. So yeah, it's a good first impression. I'm just kind of wanting, after so many, I know you can't really believe anything on Twitter, but the amount of time it's been like, ooh, we're going to be announced the next 24 hours, it's going to be this person, and nothing happens. There's a bit of me that's getting a little bit impatient. Like, I do want it to be sort of quite quickly and get some new players in, and then start to see progress happening.
Yeah, I'll tell you what was interesting, Martin, from his on the sofa appearance. I thought Vic did a fantastic job pinning him persistently on who's going to be our new manager. All very tongue in cheek, but at the same time with it was still pointed comments. I don't know whether I was reading into things a bit too much. And Joe, I mean, I'll take your view on this, if I may. The name Michael Carrick got mentioned on 3 or 4 occasions, and Sandro seemed to be suggesting that what I took from the Michael Carrick conversation was Michael Carrick is I believe he's someone that they've spoken to, although he stopped short of confirming that. But it seemed to be that there's a bit of a price tag attached to that conversation as well, which, unless we can find a compromise position, is going to probably put the kibosh on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, going from working as an assistant coach in the first team of Man United to being a head coach at Swindon Town, there's going to be a disparity in the amount of money that you're going to be offered. I think that's just a natural, you can't expect anything else. I watching it, I think there was a bit of a glint in Sandro's eye about Michael Carrick. I still think that might happen.
So I'll tell you, it's interesting, because I think my take on the money situation and something like Michael Carrick is that it's obviously it's a big. I don't want to call it a leap of faith, because I'm talking about my football club here, and I wouldn't want anyone coming into my football club calling it a leap of faith. But when you consider the relative sort of reputational security, I would say, that he's had from his time at Manchester United, if he comes to Swindon Town, he wants to come to Swindon Town and succeed. and have every possible opportunity to do that. And I think he, spending a certain amount of cash brings a certain level. It doesn't guarantee success, but I think it gives you a far better opportunity of success. And it's quite clear that, I would imagine he probably doesn't just want to be fishing around the free transfers, or if he does, he wants to be fishing around the free transfers that everyone else wants, and therefore he's got to be competitive in the wages market. So, I think I think that really is a conversation, a question of how much do you back yourself as a coach, to get the best out of, what are maybe going to be a limited bunch here.
You would imagine that Carrick's got a few contacts in the game, though, as well. Obviously, I think he might have done some coaching of the United reserves as well before going into the first team. I'm not too sure. But you'd think he'd have some fairly good inways and getting some youth team loans maybe from United. If you can make it work money-wise, I think Michael Carrick's probably the best one you can do out of the lot that we've seen. Obviously, as you mentioned, top 4 or 5 in the bookie. I know the bookies don't know everything; they might not know anything at all. The top 5 of the bookies list, any of those, I'll be absolutely over the moon with. I think.
Yeah, I mean, Rachel, I'll bring you in at this stage. I mean, cast your mind back to this time last summer when we were looking for a new manager, when we only had 5 or 6 contracted pros. You would have taken any of the current 4, according to the bookies, wouldn't you, as a gaffer back then?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we're in a completely different situation now, aren't we? And people keep referring back to last summer just to remind us, how different we are now. But I don't know. I just don't buy into a lot of the speculation. It makes me laugh on Twitter because when people put bets on, doesn't it all changes? We've heard so many names over the last couple of weeks. I am getting quite impatient now, though. I don't deal with patience very well at all, to be honest. So yeah, I just think over the next couple of days, I'm hoping for an announcement, just so we're sure and we've got enough time for pre-season. But yeah, it's worlds away from last summer. We have to be grateful for that.
Yeah, I make you absolutely right. Well, listen, I mean, to your point, Rachel, I don't really think there's even any point sort of extending the managerial conversations beyond where we're at tonight, because it's just not serving anything. And I think if the club's model of bringing in a kind of an under 23 coach, along similar lines to Ben Garner, is going to be true. I mean, there are so many options out there that we probably haven't even heard of. And it wouldn't at all surprise me if we do end up in a situation where we were last summer, where we appoint someone and everyone's like, who is that? And someone that's probably not even on the odds list. And fair play to the club in that respect, because a lot of, I think one of the things that's frustrating people is that actually Clem and Rob have done a very, very good job in keeping a lid on things. And not allowing the speculation to get out too much, and really we're just sort of feeding off that odds list, aren't we? But another bit of news that's broken stages before we came, I'll say just before, a couple of hours before we came online, are the new kits. Rachel, will you be buying the new kits?
Personally, no, because I don't wear the shirts.
Oh,
I do. I know.
Retros.
I don't. I do like them. I do think that the home shirt should have had a white trim and not a black trim. If they're basing it purely on, the past kit that they said, I do like them. I think they're smart, but no, I don't buy them. I'm afraid I'll buy it for my son, but not for me.
Oh, well, that'll do. That's all I need to know. Hey, listen,
all
I
right.
don't know whether you're going to wear it, as long as you're going to find it for someone.
I didn't think that after that. Yeah, no. Okay, so I will. I will give them money. Yeah, it won't be for me. It'll be for my son. Yeah.
Chris, what were your views on the kits? Are you a fan?
I definitely wouldn't eat a curry in the away shirt.
Yeah, that's pretty. It did occur to me that a white away shirt is just asking for trouble, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it is. I do actually like them, but as Rachel alluded to, the black trim is going to take a little bit to grow on me. I know that it's obviously like this. The original colours were red and black way back, like when we first started. So it's nice to go back to that, but it just looks wrong because we're red and white, not red and black. So it's going to take a while to get used to that.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I think this is the thing. It's going to be a little bit like when we were criticised for him putting green in the kit. People sort of lost sight of the fact that actually, if you go right the way back into the club's history, green actually did play a role in the kits. And obviously, there was a bit of a sell involved, and people were sort of saying, when the green came in, Glenn Hoddle was trying to signify green shoots and fresh beginnings and all the rest of it, but it did. It tell you that there was a bit of a sell required, Chris, wasn't there? But
there is that, and we've also the top, because obviously there's going to be a third shirt at some point, and I've seen more than one hint that that's going to be green. So there's obviously someone's gone back and they've thought about incorporating the history of the club into this, and I really like that approach of going back to see where we are.
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, I can't say I'm not in the know. I haven't seen anything, but I've seen the same hints as you, Chris, and let's hope they're right. Because if it's the green kit that I think, well, there's a couple of choices, isn't there? Really, you've got the Gary Elkins era Castrol GTX green. And you've also got the what we got? We got the potato print, and we've also got the Wiltshire flag green and white as well, haven't we? So
I do like what I'm hearing about various things. It's like where we're going back to bring these things in rather than. I mean, I loved. I'm going to call it gold. I loved the gold away shirt last year, but I know quite a few people didn't because of a similarity to a certain other team. But I do
definitely gold.
Gold and green.
Definitely gold. Joe, are you going to be buying?
I am, mate. I was hoping to go down to the club shop after work tomorrow, but closes at 6. I'm not too sure I can get down the M4 in half an hour without getting pulled over by the police. So I'll be ordering online. As Chris says, you don't want to be eating a Joe Fraser in that away shirt because that's going to go straight in the bin if you do.
No, you definitely don't want to be doing that. And yeah, to your point, Joe, I mean, the club have been very good at making that point today. Obviously, the club shop has been refurbed. The wonderful Debs has told me that she's been past the county ground, had a look in, and it looks like a proper overhaul in the club shop. So exciting plans ahead, no doubt, on the merchandising and replica kit front. But the website, I believe it's going to be open selling the kits tomorrow from midday. I think, unless I've got that wrong, someone please feel free to correct me. But yeah, you will be able to order your shirts online tomorrow, so you haven't got to make it to the county ground if you're out of town or like me. Last but not least, on the kit front, Martin, are you going to be buying?
To be honest, at the moment I am hemorrhaging money, so probably not instantly, but in future I would like to. Might even be proper peasant style and wait until it goes to the last day of sale next year, and then get myself for it cheap then. But yeah, I do like it. I'm gonna be a bit different. I like the black on it, but black's my favorite color. It speaks to my inner goth. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I think that it's not a complaint. My one little bit of disappointment is when they kind of hinted at it when they showed the retro shirts. That home kit was the first one I ever owned. It's the first winning kit I remember. So in my mind, I was thinking, maybe it's going to be almost a like for like with that. So it spoke to me with a lot of nostalgia. So there was a little bit they've got the pattern on the shirt, but it's not quite what I was thinking in my mind. But that's my own problem. I think on the basis of it, I think it looks like a real nice shirt.
I think it's one of those, Martin, that when you see hopefully more images released tomorrow, the swirl pattern that's actually on the home shirt is far more profound than I think we might believe, and I think it's because the black trim is such a diversion away from what we've seen previously. Most people their eyes have just drawn to that, and yeah, you get the impression for some that's going to be a little bit Marmite. But I've seen comments today about us being all about red and white, but me personally, big fan of it. Yeah, I'll be buying, but then to be honest, I tend to buy them. I tend to go nuts and buy them every year. And encouragingly, all the youngsters in my house have all jumped straight on it and said that I've got to be buying it for them as well. So you're not the only one that's going to be hemorrhaging cash.
Well, I've got 5 shirts to buy tomorrow, so.
Hey, we're kindred spirits, Chris. Hey, the joys of parenting.
I think the link to that shirt, I think it's the swirls more than anything else that's the link to between those two shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
Because obviously, I mean, we were all talking about, people were talking about, is the badge going to go back? Is it going to be the collar? And then it comes out, it's basically just the swirls.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I would just say to anyone, like, at the end of the day, if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. And if you don't like the white, you don't have to buy it. What I will say is that the last couple of years, the goalkeeping shirts have been fantastic. The fact that they come in typically as short sleeve variants make them very appealing if you want to buy something along those lines. And we've got the small matter of a third shirt as well, which, if it's going the way we think it might, could end up being an absolute, cult kit. So plenty to look forward to.
And also, I think we need to another thing to mention is this: the bucket hats, which is going to be a good thing for us all to get involved in.
It's absolutely brilliant news. Over the moon that Rob, Seaside Reds, as he's known on Twitter, has managed to get a deal agreed with the football club. But one of the reasons that's so important is obviously for things like trademarking and, getting the colour in right and just in terms of certainty of being able to produce those products moving forward without any kind of fear of complaint or it's wonderful news. It's interesting, isn't it? I saw a few comments today saying, is Harry McCurdy going to get a royalty? Well, as far as I'm aware, Rob was producing bucket hats before Mr. McCurdy even pitched up. So I would say maybe Mr. McCurdy needs to be given a portion of his pay to Rob and maybe buy us all a bucket hat. How about that? But no,
I'll definitely be getting one of each. Well, I'll probably be getting more than one of each because I've got another 3 to get hold of.
Well, you saw, I don't know if you noticed today, but in the photos, I think it was Clem was sporting a rather tasty looking Derby Rimmer purple shirt version.
Well, yeah, I definitely want the potato print and I want the purple one.
Yeah, well, again, it's a little bit lip smacking, isn't it? Because if you don't want to go and buy yourself a replica shirt for whatever reason, should be giving your head a wobble on that front. But blimey, I'm sure Rob's got some fantastic plans. I mean, I think back to that Burma era. I think back to the yellow shirt. I think back to the Castrol era under McMahon. I mean, we've got some wonderful shirts. I'm sure he's going to be dipping into all of that. Rich.
Oh, I know. One of my favourite shirts. I think that Andrew Hawes even mentioned it on Vic's show the other night. Is that going back to the 96 season, the black and blue half? I would love a bucket hat with that based on that shirt.
I completely agree. So that's the wonderful thing about that partnership with Rob. I mean, so many so many of those little trademarks, so many of those designs is just going to be able to just plow on in, and hopefully, it makes sense. I mean, it's just good to see Rob getting a little earn out of it. It's good to see there's going to be more funds going back into our club. Before you know it, we're going to have more bucket hats in the stands than seats. The way we're going, I think.
Yeah, well, I think shirts and hats tomorrow. I might be lucky if it costs me any less than 250, 300 quid.
It's not going to be a cheap day for us, Chris, tomorrow. But just dig in. To make full use of credit card or overdraft is all I would say tomorrow. I think there's only other bit of news that I picked up in the last couple of days is there's been a subtle change with the Cardiff kickoff on the 23rd. Correct me if I'm wrong. 23rd of July at the County Ground. We're hosting our only home pre-season friendly of this campaign. And the kickoff's been moved to 12 o'clock. I believe that's been directed by the police. A little bit of a shame that we got to move kick-off of on a nice sunny day against Cardiff City under police advice. Have I got that right, Martin? Is it the police that have directed that, or is there anything else afoot?
Yeah, apparently so. I think Cardiff announced it first, and a lot of their fans were confused. I think especially maybe the more younger ones don't remember the last time we played each other in the league, and things are a little bit tasty. I don't quite understand it. It's a pre-season game. Would you expect things to go bad at a pre-season game? I guess you can't be too sure, but yeah, it's on police advice, so a bit of a shame, but there we go. And so there's also one thing about the club shop opening tomorrow. It's not been confirmed officially by the club, but apparently there's going to be an official food bank collection point. Hopefully the club do confirm it, but if you are going down there and there is a point there for food, if you can spare anything, please donate, because I think Jay's worked really hard to help get that in place, so it'd be good if we can start collecting food for the
Yeah, that would, 100% right. You know, Jay's been working tirelessly with us over the last few weeks for the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge, setting up the football tournament that's going to be hosted at Foundation Park, where we're going to be having a barbecue, both pre and post. And there's a whole host of things going on that day. We're hopeful that we're going to have some players from the club attending. It's sold out in a matter of minutes, so that will also be a fantastic day. If you have a look at the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge Twitter feed, all the details for the tournament are on there if you fancy coming down, enjoying a day in the sun, and getting your football fix ahead of the new season. One other thing to add to the mix, please train your keen eyes onto Twitter tomorrow, because we've got a really special giveaway that we're going to be starting. It's going to be a competition where we're going to be asking you, or indeed you and your kids, to recreate your favourite ever Swindon Town goal in your garden or down your local park. And the winning entry is going to win a full mascot package for a junior on the first game of the season. And that's very much in care of and in association with our good friends at Verologic. So just to be clear, those of you that are aware of Phoenix from the Flames and fantasy football, Skinner and Badil back in the day, we're going to be asking you, and indeed, or you and your nippers, to recreate your favourite ever Swindon Town goals in your garden. Create a little video, upload it to Twitter, make sure you're tagging us. All the promotion's going to kick off from tomorrow, so it's just a little early sighter from us if you want to start getting your heads around exactly what that goal is going to look like and how you're going to do it. But a really nice opportunity for a loved one or a very deserving young person, first game of the season, to be a mascot to what could be a Michael Carrick opportunity. Who knows? But do make the most of that when we push the promotion out tomorrow. I hope you have a lot of fun doing it. I think between now and then we've got a super guest coming on next week. We've got none other than Giuliano Grazioli is going to be joining us on the show next Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we're going to do a bonus show because the fixtures are going to be released. So you'll be getting two shows out of us next week where we'll be going through the fixture list, having a pick through that. And you would hope at that point we've got a new manager in place. So you may end up getting 3 shows out of us, but hey, if you do, let's just hope I still have a voice at that point. But at this point in time, I'll draw a line under proceedings, guys. My thanks to Rachel, my thanks to Chris, my thanks to Joe, my thanks to Martin, my thanks to Kev, and of course, my sincerest thanks to the legend that is Fraser Digby for giving us such a huge portion of his time tonight. And of course, my thanks to you guys, for everyone tuning in, whether you're listening live or listening to one of the recorded shows that's gone out across a podcast channel or on YouTube, or indeed you're listening back on Twitter Spaces. The show's nothing without you guys listening in. The Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge is an unofficial Swindon Town fans Twitter space. Doesn't represent the views of Swindon Town Football Club or indeed Sir Tom Broadbent himself. Thanks ever so much for your ears, guys. Look forward to catching up with you all very soon.